Welcome to r/entitled parents, where Karen is demanding her daughter's lottery winnings. My family is demanding my lottery winnings after they excluded me from a family trip. I, 28 female, grew up in a family of 5. My parents, my older brother, who's 30, my younger sister, who's 25, and me. From as far back as I can remember, I was the black sheep. My siblings were the golden children, the ones who got the praise, attention, and honestly, most of the love. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't completely ignored, but I always felt like I got the scraps. If my siblings wanted something, they got it. If I wanted something, it was maybe next time, or do you really need that? A few months ago, my family decided to plan this big, fancy overseas trip. You'd think someone would have at least mentioned it to me, right? Nope. I only found out when I saw my sister posting pictures on Instagram. It was all fancy dinners, gorgeous beaches, and captions about making memories with family. I was confused and kind of hurt, so I asked my mom why I wasn't included. She said, "We didn't think you'd want to come, and besides, we are tight on a budget." That stung. I mean, they didn't even give me the chance to say no. But whatever, I let it go. I'm used to being left out. Fast forward to about a month ago, I was at the gas station, and on a whim, I bought a lottery ticket. I don't even usually play, but something about that day felt lucky. Turns out I wasn't wrong. I ended up winning over $2 million. It felt surreal. At first, I didn't even know what to do. After calming down, I decided to be smart about it. I paid off my debts, set up a solid investment plan, and put a chunk away for fun. But I didn't tell my family. I didn't want them to treat me any differently or suddenly pretend like they cared more than they actually do. Well, my secret didn't last long. A few weeks later, I bought myself a new car. Nothing super flashy, just a reliable upgrade from my old clunker. That's when the questions started rolling in. My mom saw the car and asked where I got the money. I tried to brush it off, but eventually the truth came out. Suddenly, it was like they all had dollar signs in their eyes. My mom was the first to say something. She called me selfish for keeping all that money to myself while they were struggling. Funny, because they didn't seem to be struggling on their fancy vacation. My sister basically demanded that I pay off her student loans, and my brother straight up asked me to buy him a house. Not help with a down payment, not a loan, a whole house. I calmly told them I wasn't obligated to share my money just because we're related, especially when they've never gone out of their way to treat me like family. I even brought up the trip as an example. My dad had the audacity to say, "That was different. This is family money." Family money? Are you kidding me? I bought a lottery ticket with my own money. It wasn't like we all pitched in for it, but now they're acting like I owe them a cut, like they're entitled to what I earned, or won in this case. When I refused, the insults started flying. My mom called me selfish and ungrateful. My siblings jumped on the bandwagon, calling me a brat and saying I was ruining the family dynamic. Now they're barely speaking to me unless it's to guilt trip me about the money. I don't know if I should feel bad or if they're just proving my point about how they've always treated me. Am I the jerk for standing my ground and refusing to share? Not the jerk. First off, it's your money. You bought the ticket, you won, and you're not obligated to share a dime with anyone. The whole family money argument is complete BS. If they weren't willing to include you in their fun family trip, why are they suddenly so concerned about family dynamics now that you have money? Funny how that works. They were fine leaving you out when it suited them, but now they want a piece of the pie? Nah, it doesn't work like that. Also, the entitlement is unreal. Asking you to pay off loans or buy houses like you're their personal ATM is so out of line. It's not like they're coming to you with kindness or even showing any appreciation for what you've been through as the black sheep of the family. They're just demanding things because they think they deserve it. But what have they ever done to deserve anything from you? Their vacation budget seemed fine without you, so why are they suddenly struggling? It sounds like selective struggling to me. My best friend turned out to be crazy and is ruining my wedding. A little background on this girl. Let's call her Jess. At this point, she's kind of a hot mess. She's one of those people who posts every detail of her life on Facebook. One month, she's got a new love of my life, and the next, she's tagging a new best friend. It's the same cycle every time. New relationships, new friendships, and they always end terribly, with both sides hating each other. So how did I end up being her best friend? Well, Jess wasn't always this way. When I first met her, about 5 years ago, she was just your average girl in her early 20s dealing with normal drama. But then, life hit her hard. In the last 2 years, she lost her mom and her grandpa. She doesn't have any other family, and things spiraled after that. She dropped out of school, then found out her boyfriend at the time had been cheating on her. After that breakup, she was basically at rock bottom. So I did what I thought was the right thing to do and became her shoulder to cry on. A few months later, she was telling everyone how close we were, and out of nowhere, she started calling me her best friend. I didn't think much of it at the time, but it felt like a quick leap to make, especially considering the whole best friend thing is usually something that develops naturally, not forced. Then, a few months ago, I got engaged. I had been planning my wedding for a while and had made it clear from the beginning that my sister was going to be my maid of honor. But when Jess heard the news, she started telling everyone she was going to be my maid of honor too. I honestly didn't know how to handle it. I couldn't bring myself to tell her she wasn't my best friend, especially after all she had been through. She had lost so much, and I didn't want to hurt her more. So I ended up saying I'd have 2 maid of honors. It wasn't ideal, but I was just trying to avoid drama. That was mistake number 1. Shortly after, Jess met a guy. Within 2 weeks, they were engaged, and a week after that, they were married. Fast forward a month, and they were already getting divorced. I don't even know if it was technically legal. All I know is she changed her last name and is still going by it, so I'm assuming it was. But that whole roller coaster ride was just wild. Since her divorce, my own wedding planning has been a nightmare. Jess is constantly criticizing my choices, telling me marriage doesn't work, love can't save anything, and so on. She goes on and on about how much money I'm spending on my wedding when her whole thing was a Vegas wedding that cost a few $100s. She's even been rude to the vendors I'm meeting with. But what really gets me is that she gets upset when I don't bring her to meetings since she's the maid of honor. I'm at the point now where I just want to cut her out of the wedding entirely, something I should have done from the start. But when I confessed this to a mutual friend, my friend warned me to be careful. Jess can be very vindictive. Apparently, when Jess found out her ex from a few years ago was getting married, she tried to contact the bride to tell her he was cheating on her, even though he wasn't. One of her last best friends got fired from her job because Jess created fake email accounts and bombarded customer service with complaints about her. And because Jess knows so much about my wedding, I'm seriously terrified that she'll try to sabotage it somehow. At this point, it feels like I can't win. I don't know if it would be easier to just keep her in the wedding, despite everything, because at least that would save me the drama. But I really don't know what she's capable of. I'm genuinely worried she'll make everything harder if I don't just grin and bear it. So now I'm stuck. Do I keep her involved in the wedding to avoid the potential drama, or do I cut her out and deal with whatever fallout might come from it? Honestly, at this point, I feel like my wedding is slipping through my fingers and I'm not sure what to do. Update 3 months later. Before I could have a proper conversation with Jess, she confronted me about everything. Apparently, the mutual friend I confided in decided to spill the beans, and of course, a twisted, dramatic version of the story made its way back to Jess. Great. It was a whole mess of emotions. I tried to stay calm as I explained to her that I felt like she had overstepped her boundaries, and it was really starting to take a toll on me. Instead of listening, she just yelled about how I was a terrible friend, how she'd put all her faith in the wrong people, and how she was trying so hard to be a good maid of honor. I made the mistake of pointing out that I never actually asked her to be my maid of honor in the first place. She looked at me shocked and then said, "Well, then I must be delusional." I guess the first step is admitting you have a problem, right? Progress? Needless to say, after that, we weren't on speaking terms. After our blow-up, I took all your advice and immediately called all my wedding vendors to let them know that only my fiancé and I would be making decisions from here on out. I even set up a confirmation word with them, which turned out to be a smart move, because they told me this kind of drama happens all the time. Nobody even questioned me about it. The one vendor I forgot to contact was the bakery making our wedding cake, but they called me, asking if I was sure I wanted to cancel it. Apparently, there was a voicemail left on their machine about it. Strange. But then things took an even crazier turn. A few weeks after our fallout, Jess met some guy who she claimed was the love of her life. Fast forward a few weeks and they were engaged. Yes, again. It was like I was watching a bad reality TV show. Then our mutual friends got invitations to her wedding, which, surprise, surprise, was on the same day as mine. But since they had already RSVP'd for my wedding, a lot of them had to decline her invitation. Then, just days before her wedding, it gets canceled. Why? Turns out the guy she was marrying was already married. And guess what? So was she. Apparently, Jess never got officially divorced from her first impromptu wedding. So as far as I know, no wedding actually happened. I have no idea if they still plan on getting married, but honestly, I'm just glad to be out of that circus. Anyway, I got married a few weeks ago and everything was absolutely perfect. The weather was beautiful, the venue looked amazing, and the people there were wonderful. Except maybe my uncle, who gets a little too into the dancing when he's had a few drinks. But hey, that's family, right? All in all, it was a fantastic day, and I couldn't have asked for anything better. My office manager's obsession with rules led to her downfall. I used to work at a mid-sized company where our department had its own supply closet. The rules were simple: take what you need, don't hoard, and keep it tidy. Fair enough, right? Well, that was until our new office manager, Karen, came along and decided to turn everything upside down. Karen had one main goal: to cut costs. She was obsessed with it. Every morning, like clockwork, she'd swoop into the supply closet and inspect it with the precision of a hawk. If she noticed a box of pens was a little lighter than yesterday, or if the post-its weren't perfectly aligned, we'd all get a stern email about unnecessary consumption, as if the world was going to end because one of us took an extra sticky note. But that wasn't the worst of it. Karen took it a step further by implementing a sign-out sheet for every single supply. If you needed a highlighter, you had to write it down and justify why you needed it. This is where things started to get ridiculous. It was like we were working in an office supply penitentiary. And just when we thought it couldn't get worse, Karen decided to add another layer of micromanagement. She locked the supply closet and declared herself the sole key holder. If anyone needed anything, we had to email her. Want a new pen? Email. Running low on tape? Email. A single paperclip? Email. Of course, this was in addition to her other duties, so getting a response could take hours. And that's when things really started to slow down. People couldn't get their work done because they were waiting on something as basic as a stapler. That's when we, as a team, decided it was time for some malicious compliance. One of my coworkers, Tom, was a bit of a prankster, but he always stayed within the rules. He saw an opportunity and took full advantage of it. Every time he needed anything, no matter how small, he emailed Karen. Need a paperclip? Email. New marker? Email. Stapler? Email. Basically, every little office supply became an emergency. And to his credit, Tom kept it polite and professional. He was just playing by the rules Karen had said. Soon, the rest of us followed suit. The entire department started flooding Karen's inbox with individual supply requests. It was beautiful. The floodgates had opened, and Karen was drowning in her own bureaucracy. The best part? She had to handle every single request personally. So what started as a quick task for her turned into a mountain of work. Approving requests started taking days instead of hours. People didn't have notebooks for meetings, presentations stalled because someone was waiting on a dry erase marker, and by the time Karen responded, it was like we were living in the dark ages of office supplies. It didn't take long for upper management to notice. Our department's performance metrics started to plummet. Meetings were delayed, projects were stuck in limbo, and it was all because of the supply closet disaster. People started pointing fingers, and Karen's precious system was finally put under the microscope. She tried to defend her approach, claiming we were all being wasteful and that structure was necessary. But the evidence was undeniable. Her micromanagement was only making things worse. It was clear that her over-the-top policies weren't saving money, they were costing the company time and productivity. After one particularly disastrous week, upper management had had enough. They swooped in and revoked Karen's authority over the supply closet. They also gave her a formal reprimand. The lock on the closet was removed, the sign-out sheet disappeared, and we were back to the old honor system. Karen, thoroughly humiliated, kept a low profile after that. As for us, sure, we may have lost a week of productivity, but the sweet satisfaction of watching Karen get buried under the weight of her own rules made it all worth it. We were back in business, free to grab our pens and post-its without jumping through a million hoops. And Karen? Well, let's just say she learned the hard way that micromanagement never ends well. Might break up with my boyfriend of 4 months due to his reaction to me wanting to spend a weekend alone. Important info. I live in a different European country to the one I'm from. My boyfriend is a native of the country in which I live. I'm an extroverted introvert. I've been single for the past few years. I live alone and I have a good job. September of last year, I met my boyfriend, 25 male, and we started dating. We've been together officially since mid-October, and we've spent every weekend together since we met. I was a bit apprehensive of the age gap, I'm 30 and he's 25, but said I'd give it a go as he treated me very well, and he's an all-around great person. Fast forward to December, I fly home for Christmas. I call him a few times and made sure to text him a few times every day. I have a big family and don't get home much, so I was busy visiting people coming to visit. I had no time off. Going home for me isn't really a holiday. I always joke that I need a holiday to recover from my holidays. While I was at home, he started sending me messages about he doesn't like feeling ignored and like I'm neglecting him, etc. I apologized but stipulated I was busy at home. Fast forward, the first weekend I'm back in the country we both live in, I go to visit him. He lives about a 40-minute drive away, but I don't have a car as I live in the city, so it's a 2-hour train journey. I had just gotten my period and was exhausted and didn't feel well. He had this idea that we would have a romantic bath and got all this stuff, even after me saying I wasn't really up for all that. But I said we can cuddle, hang out, or whatever. The whole day he was pouting and sending me on one guilt trip after another. For the first time in my head, I was like, oh my goodness, are you a child? I had already mentioned during the week that I wanted the next weekend off and spend it alone at home. Well, his pouting that followed was absolutely ridiculous. I tried to explain that I just need some time for myself, but he can't understand why I don't want him there. We've been talking about this and it feels like it's nonstop. Then last night he texted me, "Please don't start an affair on the weekend you won't see me." This just boiled my blood. Here's the exchange. Him: "Please don't start an affair on the weekend when you don't want to see me." Me: "I'll repeat myself, but for the last time. It's not that I don't want to see you, but that I need time alone, and I will not start an affair. I won't even leave my flat." Him: "Please don't be angry with me. I have accepted I'm not going to see you this week anyway. I just had a bad feeling in my stomach. My dad asked if you were coming back this week, or if I was still going to your city, and I said not this week, and he asked why. I said because you need time alone so that you feel better, which seemed strange to him, because that's exactly why a person has a partner." Then he told me a story about relatives who ended up cheating when they said they wanted to be alone. I responded, "It's not that I feel bad or that I need this to feel better. I'm just like this. I need a lot of time alone. I've always been like this, and I will always be like this. It has nothing to do with you or anyone else. I want to spend time alone. I don't want to talk about it all the time either. It will happen more than once that I say I need time alone, and I don't want to have to discuss it every time or have to reassure you. I honestly don't know why it's such an issue. But yes, we've spent every weekend together since we met, and I just need a weekend to myself. That doesn't mean that I will or want to cheat on you, and I find the accusation almost unbelievable, just because I want to spend some time at home in peace. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I can't believe I have to justify myself like this over a single weekend anyway. I don't want to argue either, so please let's just leave it. This whole thing is just ticking me off more." Him: "I'm sorry. I'll leave this subject for good, and I'll never question it again if you want to be alone, but I didn't accuse you. I was just way too excited to see you again and didn't pay attention to what you wanted. Sorry, I'll change." I'm basically over this. It's like a switch has gone off in my head and I can't turn it back on. I find it incredibly unattractive. I can't believe I've had to spend days justifying wanting to spend one weekend alone. I'm now thinking of breaking up with him, but it feels like such a jerk move, and I know it will break his heart. It's just way too fast and way too much. Honestly, I preferred my life when I was single. That's just the truth. Am I horrible? What should I do? One more thing to note. I flew home on Monday, December 23rd. I had a lot to do that weekend, cleaning my house, packing, buying last-minute gifts. I told him I wouldn't have time to hang out that weekend. He still came to my city alone and hung around all day. He said, "You don't have to meet me, I'm just here." I tried to explain the pressure that put me under, but it was like talking to a brick wall. I ended up meeting him for an hour, but I was upset. It feels like there's a pattern emerging. Am I overreacting? Maybe we're just not on the same page feelings-wise. Break up with him. Don't take a step further with this dude. He's a scarecrow stuffed with red flags. Don't be in a relationship that exhausts you. You simply don't have to be. If you were happy or single, that's a great reason to break up, even apart from him being super weird about this. End it. You don't have to be in a relationship you don't want to be in. He's immature and disrespectful of your need for alone time. Do it over the phone and block him, delete, and move on. He sounds like my ex, and I put up with 5 years of that before I broke and ended it. I kept hoping it would get better or he'd finally chill and give me space, but it only got worse as time went on. He didn't like me meeting friends either without him there. It was suffocating. By the end, I was exhausted from the non-stop calls and texts. At its worst, I took a nap and woke up to 80 missed calls and over 40 text messages in under 90 minutes. That was followed by him going off on me and accusing me of cheating. We didn't live together, thankfully, and it would turn into a massive fight. I had to answer every call and text immediately or all heck would break loose. My stepdaughter ruined my house, so now I'm getting revenge. I, 43 female, and my husband, who's 47, we've been married for 4 years now. We both have kids from our previous marriages, which includes our 12 and 10-year-old sons, and O, who's 18, daughter. My husband and I dated for 3 years prior to getting married, but we all moved in together 2 years ago. O lives with us full-time, and it had a bit of a rocky start with mine and O's relationship, but we managed to push through it. I told O from day one that I wasn't her mom, but if there was anything she wanted to talk about or that she needs, she can come to me. After a few months, we became quite close, and she talked to me about anything she was too embarrassed to talk with her dad about. Recently, O has been trying to make friends at college since she just started in the spring. On-campus residence is very expensive for the college, and it's close to our house, so O decided to stay at home. That's not a problem. The problem is that O keeps bringing her friends over to hang out, but leaving it a mess. Normally, it's not a major deal. I have OCD, so sometimes there are issues depending on the situation though. Because she picks up after herself, but I recently hired a housekeeper to clean the house once a week since I've been working overtime more often, and me and my husband just don't have the time to do it. It's expensive, but I can't stand it when it becomes too messy for me, so I think it's worth it. This time, she brought her friends over after the house was cleaned, and I guess they decided not to take their shoes off and walked all around the house leaving footprints. They also made pizza from scratch and left the crumbles on the counters, among other things. They pretty much made the entire house filthy before I could even get home. Once again, the cleaning service is quite expensive because I like it a higher level of cleaning quality, so I was ticked off. My husband is trying to make me let it go because O has always struggled to make friends, but I can't let it go because of how much it cost. I requested the exact amount I paid for the cleaning service to her Venmo, and she acted all confused on why she had to pay for it. I explained that her and her friends ruined my house that was just cleaned, but she insisted it wasn't her. I have a Ring camera, and I have video proof of her and her friends going into the house, and they were the only ones home that day before me. I gave her two choices: pay for the damages or I stop paying for her phone. She's complaining, saying it wasn't her, and she doesn't have the money to pay for the phone bill. Am I the jerk? Edit to clear up confusion. The cleaners came before O, fully cleaned the house, then left, and an hour later, O came in with her friends. Footprints in your house and pizza crumbs do not make a house filthy. You had plenty of options other than charging your stepdaughter. You could have cleaned it. Your husband could have cleaned it. You could have asked her to, etc. You're the jerk. Telling your stepdaughter she ruined your house is a sure way to ruin your relationship with her. You're the jerk for calling your house ruined for a fairly easily cleanable mess. She should have cleaned it because you're not the one who usually disciplines, and this is obviously an issue for you, and between the two of you, you should have told her father to enforce that. Of course, her friends should have taken their shoes off. Of course, your stepdaughter needs to clean up after herself and her friends, but she's not a jerk for living and sometimes leaving a mess. Ruined implies actual damage. A mess is a mess, not damage. You're overreacting. You're the jerk. There's nothing wrong with crumbs on the counter. My counter has more crumbs than I know what to do with. You know why? Because that's what happens when you have kids. Same goes for footprints. Unless you're one of those psychos that makes people take off their shoes every time they step foot into your house, you're gonna wind up with some footprints here and there. Big whoop. You sound insufferable, and if I were your daughter, I would do so much more to your precious house just to tick you off. Am I the jerk for making my niece clean and cook to teach her respect? I'm a stay-at-home mom by choice, and my husband works 2 jobs to make that possible for me. Due to his 2 jobs, the majority of housekeeping and cooking is my responsibility. My husband spends extra time with the kids and taking care of them when he's off or has an hour or 2 of downtime and does stuff around the house on his off time. We're happy with this arrangement and it works for us. My niece, Jenny, who's 20, female, is staying with us while she's in college. The only expenses she has is her own food if she doesn't want to eat what we make, her car, and her gas, so she works part-time. She does not like our arrangement at all. Jenny is constantly on about how my husband needs to be doing more around the house and taking care of his kids. I've told her that his contribution is working so that I can pursue staying home, but she doesn't listen and has told both of us that it needs to be 50-50 with housekeeping and the kids. My husband for the most part ignores her. He told her one time he does what he can when he can and hasn't entertained her pestering since. It got to a point I told Jenny she either needs to respect our dynamic, not agree with, just respect, or that she would need to figure out a different living arrangement. A couple days ago, my husband got home early, around 11:30 p.m. He wanted to play some games to unwind before we went to bed. He asked if I moved his console. We were looking for it when Jenny came up from the basement and said that she had his console and would give it back once he actually helped around the house so I could get a break. We got his console back after telling her we will not tolerate stealing in our house and told her we'd figure out what to do about her by the morning. we decided to give her one last chance before kicking her out. We asked what all she thought he should be doing around the house, and she told us. And we then told her that she would be responsible for all of those tasks, minus childcare for the week. We sent our oldest to my parents, and for the first 4 days, if it was on that list, I didn't do it. Some mess accumulated, and meals didn't get made 2 out of those 4 days. Jenny complained that she couldn't do everything with her studies and job, but I told her I didn't want to hear it since she expected my husband to do it. The 5th day, Jenny left to stay with a friend, and I got a call from my sister. She feels what we did was cruel and too far since Jenny was just trying to stand up for her aunt. I told her I didn't need Jenny standing up for me. What I needed was for her to respect how my husband and I run our household and not always have a go at him. She wants us to let Jenny come back and drop the cleaning lesson, but I told her no way, since she did steal from my husband over this. My own parents are now backing my sister. Were we wrong to have Jenny do housework to make a point? Edit. To the people who are concerned and keep telling me to call a crisis helpline, please buzz off. You're the jerk. Just because your husband sits on his butt all day in an air-conditioned office browsing the internet and talking down to low-paid employees does not give him the right to come home and play video games until it's time to go to sleep. Your niece is 100% right, and it's so sad that you can't see that. Looks like your husband has you brainwashed into his outdated beliefs, and your niece is just trying to get you to wake up from your delusion. This story honestly breaks my heart. Why should all of the childcare or house chores be your responsibility when your husband benefits just as much from a clean house as you do? You're the jerk. I'm sorry, but your niece is correct. This isn't the 50s anymore, and fathers can't get by doing the bare minimum at home just because they have some basic job they do. It's been proven time and time again that stay-at-home moms have it much harder than any father who spends his days goofing off in the workplace. You have to take the kids to school and pick them up, cook breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, etc. Basically be a 24/7 babysitter, and all he has to do is go to work, clock in, and talk to his idiot friends all day. I hope you realize how wrong you are, and don't be surprised when niece goes no contact with you. Not the jerk. What is it with you people here on Reddit? If the dynamic works for them, why can't you just agree to disagree and be happy for OP that her family is happy, healthy, and safe? She said that her husband works 2 separate jobs so that she can be what she'd like to, which is a stay-at-home mom. If that's what makes her happy and it works for them, where's the harm in it? Sometimes I feel like many of you are so anti-tradition that it warps your mind into something that is very broken, to say the least. My fiance refuses to add my name to the house he owns. My fiance, 28 male, and I, 26 female, started dating 3 years ago, and I can't wait to be with him for the rest of my life, but I think I might have messed up. We got engaged 3 months ago and are planning on getting married in November, and last night we were discussing some things about the wedding and the topic of our financial plan for once we're married, which is where the argument started, because I asked him when I would be added onto the deed for the house. Background. When my fiance was 23, his uncle passed and left him a huge inheritance, which has basically set him up for life, especially since he doesn't like super flashy things and only really spends money on his hobbies. And for the first 2 years after this, he struggled to date because he was always worried the girl he was dating was using him. I moved in with fiance a year into our relationship, and he has never charged me for any bills and only expects me to pay for luxury items that I want. 9 months ago, me and my fiance had a discussion in which he asked me if I wanted to stop working because I worked as a teacher and he could tell that my work wasn't making me happy, which he was right. We came to the agreement that I would stop working and some ground rules. The ground rules include that he would give me allowance every month and that he expected me to not just sit at home all day on my phone because he wants me to find hobbies and passions because we both don't want kids. I was totally on board with the rules, and quitting really helped my mental health. So when I brought up having my name added to the house deed, he got really quiet. He told me that he didn't feel comfortable adding my name to the deed as the house had been fully paid off by him before we had even met, and he felt that he is the one responsible for all the payments. This made me upset because I thought he was trying to say that I was using him and we're getting married, so I thought the house would become ours. He told me that things will become ours, but this was the first house he ever bought and that he wanted to keep something for himself. He told me that if we decide to change houses or have one built, which we have discussed before, that he would have both of our names on the deed. This made me more upset Because if he's willing to do it on the possible next house, why can't he do it for our current house? We got into an argument and I left to go to my sister's apartment and texted my friend about the situation, and she told me that I was being a jerk and overreacting. But I don't see it that way, and I think he should be willing to put my name on the deed. Am I overreacting and throwing away a good relationship, or is he being a jerk by not seeing my side? You are not the jerk. Once you get married, regardless of job situation or the fact that the house was bought and paid for before you and him got together, you have every right to ask to be on the deed. What if, God forbid, something happens to him? You're potentially left without the house and access to it, especially if there are other family members he may have promised it to or have a current will to. If tables were turned, he'd expect that you add him. He's the one that pushed you to leave your teaching job. It doesn't need to be done until after you're married. I think you should get your own source of income, however, because if something were to happen to him, you're likely not going to get a dime out of the situation. Not the jerk. A marriage is supposed to be a union, two becoming one. What's his is yours, and what's yours is his. There's an unhealthy power imbalance here with your current situation. His giving you an allowance every month is giving him all the power in the relationship. You are completely dependent on him, and this sets up the possibility for a horrible dynamic. I would very much rethink your relationship. Not the jerk. I don't think it's an overreaction. I'm concerned that you're allowing him to have total financial control over your life, though. I'm a teacher myself, and I know its highs and lows. If not teaching, please find another job, even if it's part-time, so that you have at least that financial independence to fall back on. Not to mention connections to people outside of your significant other. From a legal standpoint, if he wants to protect you and ensure you're never thrown out upon his passing, it would be a good idea to add your name to the deed of the house. Also, for anything related to the house where he might be absent, either out of the country or in hospital, for example, then you can still do what needs to be done. My husband keeps going on solo vacations. I, 40 female, have a wonderful, loving husband who's also 40. He is an involved father, he pitches in with the housework, and he makes enough money for us to be very comfortable while I stay home with our 2 kids. I worked before having kids and intend to again once they're both school age. He's the love of my life. He's wonderful when he's here. He has a dear friend living in a different city 5 hours away who he usually visits for 2 to 3 days twice a month. Uh-oh. A few times a year, they tend to take longer 4 to 6 day trips together. It adds up to a lot of time away, but it's in manageable increments and in service to an important friendship that I wouldn't want him to miss out on. Last fall, they took a 2-week trip abroad. I knew about it well in advance and was fine with it. I figured it was a once every few years type of thing. A month or so after that trip, he tells me they're planning another overseas trip for this spring. This time, it's a place I've always wanted to go to. We had previously started to plan a trip there ourselves, but decided it would have to wait until the kids were older. I told him I wasn't happy, but somewhat grudgingly gave my blessing to what was supposed to be a 7 to 10 day trip. Same goes for another 5 to 7 day trip abroad they decided to plan for this summer, again to a place we had previously talked about going together when the kids are older. And then I found out that first the spring trip and then the summer trip had ballooned into 3 weeks each. I got upset. I cried and told him I felt betrayed and abandoned, like he was leaving me here to raise the kids. Both trips will now cause him to miss significant kid-related events he knew about before planning, while he just goes on doing what he wants and living his life without me. He found my response really hurtful, that I would act like he's abandoning me and the kids, and said that he deserves to have meaningful friendships and see beautiful things. Am I being unreasonable about this? I feel like I might be, because I haven't done a good job balancing parenthood and my own social life. I basically don't have one anymore, and worry I might be speaking from a place of envy than fairness. And we do also take other trips together as a family, but 2 months of intentional travel in the span of a year seems like a lot. And when you also add on the bi-monthly hanging out, that's about 4 months out of the year with his friend. I can count on one hand the number of solo days out I've had in the last 3 years with any of my friends, and so again, I'm not sure how much this is envy versus unfairness. Note, I haven't yet insisted he cancel any of his trips, but want to ask if he'll at least scale the summer trip back to 1 week instead of 3. So, bonus, would I be the jerk if I insisted he scale back the summer trip to 1 week? You're not the jerk, but I do think you're not facing a harsh truth. This dear friend is more than that. He has a live-in nanny and housekeeper who lets him take off and travel whenever and to wherever at his leisure. Use his time away for a month to secure a job, a nanny, then file for divorce and custody. I wish you well. Not the jerk. His amount of travel is way too much. I strongly suspect your husband is having an affair with his friend or using the friend as a cover for an affair. Oh, honey, my husband spends more time on average with me and the kids than your husband spends with you, and mine is in the army. I mean, let that sink in there. Your husband spends less time with you than many people who are legally required to pull 24-hour shifts and deploy at a moment's notice. And for what? To spend his time with a friend? Yeah, no, he's cheating, whether it's physical or not. He's stealing time and money and emotional energy that rightfully ought to be directed towards his wife and kids. He's taking advantage of you and treating you like a live-in nanny. None of that is okay. He deserves to see beautiful things? Oh no. What, do you and the kids not also deserve to see beautiful things? Are your time and your relationships completely worthless? What about your kids and their memories and their relationships? Are they also less important than this grown man's escapism? Forget scaling back the trip. He doesn't need another trip. What he needs is some priorities, and if he refuses to get those in order, then maybe it's time for you to go find a man who can be an actual partner in life. Not the jerk, obviously. You'll only be the jerk if you tolerate this absolutely unacceptable behavior towards both yourself and your kids. Am I the jerk for telling my little stepsister I didn't make any vows to her? My dad got remarried when I, 16 female, was 9. My stepsister, who's 9, was 2 at the time. My mom had passed, and her dad bailed on her mom when she was pregnant with her and was never in her life and never paid child support or anything. When my dad and his wife married, they wanted to do a family unity ceremony, which meant me and my stepsister would be standing there while vows were made to us, and then, as the kid who could speak, I would make a vow to always be there for her, to love her and be her big sister. I passed on that. My dad was upset. His wife was even more upset because she wanted the video to show her daughter one day of me making those vows to her and holding her. The ceremony happened. They made the vows to us while I was sitting and she was being held by her mom, but I didn't make any vows. There has been an expectation set that even though I didn't say the vows, that I would be the big sister my dad's wife wanted for her daughter. The vows she wrote for me say things like, I'll always do your hair when you ask, have makeovers whenever possible, take you to the park, play dolls and climb trees with you, and snuggle on the couch. And that's not even the whole list of what she promised from me. But she did expect that stuff and was disappointed when I didn't do it. Dad pushed sometimes, but not all of the time, which I get, since he probably did want more cohesion from us and for me to make an effort to try and love her and be a sister for her. Around the age of 5, my stepsister started to get a bit more demanding with that stuff, thanks to her mom and my dad a bit. She'd always want me to take her places or always want to tag along with me, was always coming into my room, etc. It got annoying, and when I would play with her or watch a movie with her, she never wanted it to end. She'd cry and whine, and her mom would try and make me keep going when I would say I needed to do my own stuff now. Dad sometimes intervened, but not always. A few nights ago, she came into my room when I was FaceTiming my aunt and said I needed to do her hair the way I did mine at night. She got into my laptop screen and tried to end the call. I had to do it myself, and then when I told her I wasn't doing it for her after that, she said I made vows to be her sister and I was being mean by not. I told her I made no vows. She said I did, and her mom showed me them. I said her mom wrote these and I never said them. She told me that wasn't true. I called her mom in and told her she needed to stop lying and tell her the truth. Dad came in and told my stepsister the 3 of them needed to talk. My stepsister was so upset by what I said, and when it was confirmed, she ran off crying to her room saying I don't love her. Dad asked me if I could console her and assure her that I do love her, and I said I couldn't do that, so he went to go comfort her. But his wife said I was a jerk and I should have played along to spare her daughter's feelings. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your stepmother has way too much expectations about sisterhood. I think it would be normal with that big age gap that your bigger sibling doesn't want to play with the younger sibling all the time. And your stepmother and father have been in the wrong when they tried to force the big sister-little sister relationship to happen. These things happen naturally if you give time and space. Got yelled at by a Karen for the first time last night, and I don't feel well now. I've been a server for over 6 years on and off. I only work a few times a month now, as I have a full-time 9 to 5. I expected my worst serving experiences were behind me, but last night proved me wrong. I was very busy juggling 8 tables at once. I was literally running and sweating because of how busy it was. It all started when a woman asked for a side of butter. I told her I would go get it for her. I had to go to the bar and drop off some drinks. She then yelled at me about the butter. It had been maybe 45 seconds. I said I haven't been able to get to the kitchen, but I was getting it right away. I ran to the kitchen, ran out, her butter dropped, and ran back. Apparently I threw the butter on the table. It's possible I didn't do it super gentle, but it wasn't meant to be aggressive or anything. She complained to the manager and told him what an evil person I am. He didn't care, but assured her it wasn't malicious. He told me just continue to be nice. I kept checking up. How's it going? Everything good over here? Let me know if I can get you anything, and they stayed mostly silent. At the end, I gave them the check, and after 5 minutes of her intently reading the check, I asked if everything was okay. This is where she got so out of hand. She said I ruined their entire night, how terrible and malicious I was, and my attitude ruined her birthday. She kept being hateful to a point where I just had to walk away and have my manager take care of it. My manager took care of their bill and told her to leave. She then went to the front to go off on me more. I finally couldn't hold it in and outburst with, "Stop! Please leave me alone. I've been nothing but nice to you. Just leave." And she continued throwing her nasty words at me and told my manager I couldn't speak to her like that. My manager repeated exactly what I said and told her to leave as well. My coworkers also demanded for her to leave. Some customers joined in too after witnessing her behavior. As she tried to yell at me more, I was unprofessional and looked her in the eyes and said, "Some people are just miserable." All the tables around her assured me I couldn't have done anything different, but I still feel at fault for some reason. I know this was an overreaction on her part, but I kind of feel unsafe and scared now. I've never experienced anything like this as a server. Edit. Thank you for your reassuring words. Now that I've been able to sleep, I feel 2 times better. I think it was just shocking initially. I appreciate every one of you. Yeah, after trying to de-escalate 3 different ways, you were absolutely right to stand up for yourself. You don't have to take anyone's crap. Her reading the bill for 5 minutes straight was her trying to find ways to get something for free by going off on you. Am I the jerk for not letting my cousin and his family stay at my house, even though I have the extra space? Background. My maternal grandmother got remarried to a wealthy man after my biological grandfather passed when my mom was young. They got divorced after an affair was discovered, and my grandmother got one of his homes in a very, very nice area. Grandma got remarried again to another wealthy man, to the person I call Grandpa. Grandma and Grandpa have since passed, and Grandma left the house to my mom, who was her only kid. Cash was divided between my mom and her step-siblings / my aunts and uncles. The house is huge, beautiful 5-bedroom, 5.5 bathroom, Georgian-style home with a pool and jacuzzi. My grandmother treasured that house and put a lot of effort and love into it over the decades she lived there. I could never sell it. She always said she wanted it to remain in the family for generations. Mom and Dad lived there once Grandma and Grandpa passed and I was out of the house. However, they've since moved to Florida and left the house in my care. This house is a pain in the butt to maintain though. Neither me or my parents are rich by any stretch of the imagination. Every penny of my mom's inheritance goes to maintaining that house. Now the issue. My favorite cousin on my granddad's side asked me recently about moving in. His wife, whom I don't get along all that well with, said that since I have the extra space, they wouldn't mind them and their 2 kids moving in for a while. According to them, they're tired of slumming it in the city in an apartment and were hoping they could get a higher quality of life in a nice neighborhood. They could save the money from rent and put it towards their own house in a year or 2. I was put on the spot, but I told them no, that I valued my privacy and solitude. I told them that my lifestyle conflicts with theirs and it wouldn't work. They called me selfish for not even considering it and that I should at least take some time. I told them the answer would be the same if I did think about it. My dad's side of the family said I'm being selfish. My dad assured me he's taking care of it and he's on my side. Mom has told me under no circumstances am I allowed to let anyone move in. Reddit, I have to wonder if I'm being selfish here. I mean, I have a ton of room and I'd be helping out my family and my little nibblings. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk 100,000%. You don't owe your home to anyone. That's an insane boundary they crossed by assuming it would be okay. Valuing your privacy and solitude is your right, and you do not owe them a darn thing. Living with someone is a really special experience. I wouldn't do it either. Some people are like that, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But I am the same as you. The Soy Lady. Many years ago, I worked at a small cafe. The customers were generally lovely, and it was not a very popular place due to it being in a weird location, so it was always slow and quiet. We often got regular customers in, and when I started, I was warned about the Soy Lady. She was an older woman who came in to order an extra-large takeaway cup of extremely hot soy milk. The staff would heat 2 cups of soy milk to the edge of burning, put it on the counter, and call her name. She would sit down at a table and wait for about 5 minutes after her name was called, then collect it. She then always came back to the counter after drinking half to complain the soy milk wasn't hot enough and demand for it to be redone, for free. She also argued the cost, $3, relentlessly when she ordered at the counter. Our manager was a spineless weasel and hated customers getting Karen-y at the counter in case it caused other customers to think this is a bad place. So he always caved to her bizarre demands and would berate the staff in front of her so he would look good for being a tough manager. So shortly after I started, I met Soy Lady. It vaguely bothered me she was getting away with nasty comments to staff and an absolutely ludicrous addiction to lava-hot soy milk, because what the heck? But not enough to actually do anything about it. Until one day, my manager decided that it was our fault we couldn't make the soy milk to her specifications, which apparently cost the business a lot of money, and he would take the full cost of her drink from our paycheck each time she returned it. Illegal? Yes. Immoral? Absolutely. Completely insane? You know it. So the next day, my manager decided to take the morning off, presumably due to the mutinous mood of the cafe staff. Soy Lady rocks up, argues the cost of $3 as usual, pays, and then says, "Don't forget to make it hot this time," with a nasty smirk on her face. Filled with sudden inspiration, I ask, "As hot as I can make it?" She replied, "Yes, even though I doubt you can do it right." Neat. I insisted she wait at the counter because it was going to be ready immediately. Filled up a metal jug with soy milk, shoved it under the espresso steamer wand, and let it scream. You're supposed to adjust the jug so the milk spins, but I just let it boil, screaming loudly as I stared blankly right at her horrified face. For what felt like 2 minutes, though probably shorter, she started to look nervous halfway through, and every customer was staring. 45 seconds in, she started to try to tell me that it was done, but I shouted, "I think it can still get hotter," over the wail of the burning soy milk. Finally, I took it off the wand, which was now crusted brown with burnt milk, tripled up on the takeaway cups because it was unbearably hot, and then told her we now charge $5 for cups of soy milk starting immediately, and we charge full price for refills, management's orders. Not true, but I was done by that time. Interestingly enough, I never saw Soy Lady again. Am I the jerk for letting my fiancé fend for himself after he constantly compared me to his mom? My fiancé had a heart attack and required an open heart surgery 2 weeks ago. He just got home a few days ago and I'm caring for him. A little backstory. His mom and I don't have a good relationship. Since the beginning of my relationship to my fiancé, his mom would constantly try to compete with me and one-up me on everything. She always claimed she should be the first woman in my fiancé's life because she birthed and raised him, and how I can't break their bond. For the most part, these comments were unprovoked, and at first, I would be too scared to defend myself. But later, I stood up for myself, and my fiancé stood up for me and established some boundaries with his mom. His mom sometimes crosses some of those boundaries, but for the most part, she's been acting a bit better. During his stay in the hospital, both I and his mom took turns staying with him. Ever since we got home, I'm the one caring for him 24/7, and I don't mind. I love him and I want him to get better. But I got extremely upset because after we got home, he was being ungrateful about everything. He started comparing me to his mom. He started saying his mom would do this thing better, and why can't I do it like his mom does, since that's how he likes it? He gave backhanded compliments to the foods I make and says, "It's good, but it's not like my mom's." He sometimes also snaps at me because I won't do something quick enough or properly enough, and he will tell me words like, I wish my mom was here. She wouldn't be so useless. Just tell her to come here if you can't do these basic tasks. I was patient with him because I don't want to upset him during his recovery. What made me lose my mind and leave the house was when he told me that his mom was probably right when she said she should be the first woman in his life since she'd care about him better than I do, and how it was a mistake establishing boundaries with her, and that I was the one he should have established boundaries with. After this comment, I didn't think twice. I just packed my clothes in my handbag and left and went and stayed at my cousin's house. He called me and said that I'm the jerk for leaving him home alone while he's recovering, and that I should have at least called his mom first so she'd come. I told him he should call her, and it's none of my business anymore. My parents told me I was out of line for leaving him to fend for himself, and that he's right, that I should have called his mom first, and now I'm the jerk for making this about me when my fiance's recovery should be my priority. Not the jerk. Go back, pack the rest of your stuff, and leave him for good. He's showing his true colors. A mama's boy will always be a mama's boy, and you'll always come second. OP. For all these years, he was an amazing partner who was able to set all the right boundaries to his mom. I don't know what changed now, and he switched that fast. Nothing changed. This is who he is. It's easy to put up boundaries when things are going well. I have sympathy for him in terms of his recovery from surgery, but ultimately, it's difficult circumstances that really test a partner's willingness to maintain said boundaries. If he can go back on his word this time, he'll do it again. Exactly. Sure, the surgery is a huge, emotional, and painful process that can bring out the worst in some people, but it sounds like he has adjusted his true self long enough to lock OP into marriage and kids. Once that happens and OP is tied down, mommy will take over his life again. Karen pulls a cruel prank on her stepmom, gets kicked out. My ex's wife, Anna, is a sweetheart. I don't know the details, but Anna had a crappy father, which caused her to fear men. She's better now, but signs of male anger still freak her out sometimes. Anyways, my ex and I share a 19-year-old daughter, Jazz. Jazz and her father were never especially close, but they treat each other with respect. She only sees her dad for a week every month, but she likes her dad's family. Anyways, Jazz was at her dad's for like 5 hours when my ex called me to come pick her up. Turns out she invited her boyfriend over and they both decided to prank Anna. It was a cruel prank knowing her history with her father, but Jazz and her boyfriend found it hilarious. Anna was inconsolable and her kids called their dad because of how upset she was. I was horrified but kept my cool to listen to Jazz's side. But when I picked her up, she was like, "OMG, it was just a joke and it was my boyfriend's idea. Besides, Anna's grown and her dad's been dead, so what's the big deal?" I asked her if she decided to do the prank knowing how Anna would react. She argued with me on this and said, "Well, it was my boyfriend's idea." I asked her if he made her do it or if he begged her to do it. She said no. I asked her if she laughed and found it funny. She said yeah, no shame. So I said, then it's your fault just as much as it's your boyfriend's fault. If you're that weak that you do something so hurtful just because your boyfriend said so, then clearly I haven't done my part. She seemed to ignore everything I said except for the "you're weak" part. She went, "Wow, Mom, now I know what you really think of me." I told her to cut it out, but she said, "You called me weak and insulted me and expect me to listen to you? You might be my mom, but that doesn't give you the right to insult me. I'm an adult, for goodness sake." I told her to act like one then and stop living off of me if she's such a big adult. She said fine and she called her boyfriend and left. But I feel terrible. I didn't mean it at all. And now I feel like maybe I shouldn't have called her weak or told her to stop living off of me. I should have just told her to cut it out. But yeah, I know I can't take it back, but my husband thinks I didn't do anything wrong. Neither does my mom, though she does think that I let her go too easily. I don't know. I'm overwhelmed and confused, and my daughter isn't talking to me, and Anna's apparently not doing too well, and I don't know. Not the jerk. If she's an adult, she'll be judged as an adult, especially on her inability to take responsibility and casual cruelty. You were honest with her, and she chose to take offense, instead of addressing the lack of empathy that brought all this on. Let her live in the real world a while. I can't imagine a harsher or more appropriate punishment. Act with kindness or get out isn't that much to ask, in my humble opinion. Am I the jerk for not pulling over while transporting a cheetah? I'm a zookeeper of 11 years and got the call yesterday that we had acquired 2 cheetahs from another zoo, about 4 hours away. Happens from time to time. Zoos decide that particular animals might be better off at one facility than another. We left in one of our transport vans around 2 p.m. I took 2 keepers with me. Let's call them Seth, who's been around as a swing keeper for a few years, has a bit of cat experience, and Megan, fairly new to the industry, brought her partially for the experience and partially because she was the only other one who wanted some extra hours working late. We arrive at 6 p.m. and get to see these 2 beautiful cheetahs, and Seth helps me get them loaded into our crates. He does ask, shouldn't we wait for them to go to the bathroom before driving back with them? Which I know is a common practice sometimes, but I said, nah, it could be hours, and the van smells of animals already. We'll be getting back late enough as it is. So they agreed and we headed back. It was a bit cramped, but we made it work. Megan sat up front with me and Seth sat in the back with the cheetah crates. Had to keep them in the passenger compartment to observe them, make sure they were okay. The drive back went fine until right before the 3-hour mark. Predictably, one of the cheetahs relieved itself. Seth said, "Oh no," it went. And a few seconds later, the smell hit us up front. Honestly, to me, it just smelled like healthy cheetah do. But I was mostly just happy to know that the cheetah we got was healthy. It sprayed too, intact male cheetah, which did make it worse. When the smell hit Megan, she started gagging, saying, "Oh my God, it's atrocious." I agreed, but kept driving. Less than a minute later, she said, "Please, can we pull over? I'm going to be sick." I said that it'll be hard to clean this. It's only another hour and a half tops. But she said, "I don't know if I can make it an hour in this." I really hoped we could make it back, but when even Seth lost his composure and started retching, I knew this wasn't good, and Megan was practically crying. So I relented and pulled off at the next exit and pulled up behind a gas station to clean the crate. But not before Megan threw up. Seth had to help me transfer the cheetah, and then we cleaned the crate and Megan's throw up. Then we got back in, but Megan recoiled and gagged, saying the van still reeked of throw up, cheetah dew, and spray, which was true. She asked if we could let it air out for another hour, but I said no, sorry, it would barely help, and we need to be getting back. She looked ill and miserable the whole drive back and has been a bit standoffish to me since. I'm not her regular direct manager, so it's not really my place to intervene. Seth did say the next day, "That's what I was afraid of," but I think my actions were justified. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I've done animal transports. Freezing, wet, smelling horribly. The animals come first. There is no waiting. You make it as short and as least stressful as possible for the animal. People can deal with it. Awesome that you stopped for them when they got sick. I would have passed them a bucket. All the "you're the jerks" are coming from people who have never worked with non-domesticated animals. Info. Is the intent for Megan to work with big cats at all? If so, I thought this was something all big cat keepers had to go through. I know I threw up 6 times in my first week working with lions, but they never gave me any breaks or help enduring it, and said eventually I'd acclimate if I stuck with it. Finally I did, sort of, but oof, it took some time, I'll tell you that. If not, then you would be the jerk. Don't put people through that smell who don't need to deal with it as part of their jobs. Not the jerk. You're zookeepers. Animals are going to do what animals are going to do. This sounds like a normal part of a job that's sometimes stinky. Sounds like Megan, and perhaps Seth, should find a different career. My son expects me to keep a promise I made over 20 years ago. I have 2 sons, Jake, who's 30, and Carlos, who's also 30. Carlos is technically my stepson, but he's still my son. I adopted him. I have a ranch. It's only 2 hours away from the city, so I used to go every week with my son Jake when he was little. During one of the trips to the ranch, I offhandedly promised him that one day this ranch would be his. I met Carlos' dad when Jake and Carlos were 6. I married him a year later. Both Jake and Carlos used to go with me almost every week to the ranch, depending on if they were busy. When they were both 16, Jake picked up football pretty seriously, so he couldn't go to the ranch so much anymore. Carlos continued to go with me until 18 when he went to college and studied engineering and agriculture. Jake got a degree in finance. After college, Carlos asked me if he could move to the ranch to work there full-time. Of course, I agreed. That was 8 years ago. Since then, he has made great improvements, and I can confidently say he's the biggest reason as to why the ranch is thriving. He also now has a wife and a daughter who live there full-time. On the other hand, Jake didn't really show any interest towards the ranch. He maybe goes once every 4 months. I was having dinner with Jake the other day. We were reminiscing a dear family friend who recently passed without a will and how his family is now looking towards a long process of litigation because they couldn't agree about how to split his stuff. I said, "Good thing that I already decided mine." Jake was surprised and asked me how I'm going to split my net worth. I told him that the stuff from his mom was going to him, and the ranch was to be split between Carlos and him, and the house will stay with my husband. Jake then asked me if I remembered the promise I made to him when he was 6. I said I did. Then he asked me why I'm not honoring that promise. I was shocked. I asked him if he was being serious, and he said yes. Then I said, "It's insane that you're expecting me to do that. You're being ridiculous." He was not happy. We finished dinner quickly after that, and when I told him goodbye, he said to me to not contact him for a while because he had to sort out his feelings about this. That was a week ago, and he hasn't returned any of my calls. Carlos is also mad at me because Jake is basically his best friend and hasn't talked to him either. My husband is staying out of all of this. Not the jerk. Carlos has sweat equity in the ranch at this point. You would be justified in leaving the ranch to Carlos alone. But you are splitting the ranch so Jake gets half of it. That's fair, and it's not breaking a promise. If Jake wants the entire ranch, he can buy out Carlos' half, which Carlos has earned. OP, make sure your attorney has an airtight will with your wants clear as crystal. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Not sure if the people calling you the jerk have kids, because it's weird for them to be saying you should be keeping the promise to give a whole ranch to a 6-year-old. You were obviously being sweet in the moment. Not to mention, you didn't have 2 kids at the time. You're the jerk. You made a promise that meant a lot to him, and when, for good reason, reneging on it, you called him insane and ridiculous. An explanation was warranted, not name-calling and belittling. You're not the jerk for how you want to divide your assets, just the way you handled this conversation. Personally, you're the jerk. I have a friend who bought her parents' house for $1 when she was a kid. Her parents have it in their will that she gets the house, and her sisters don't have legal entitlement to that property. Currently, one of her sisters lives in the house, and before she makes any changes to the property, she has to ask their parents, and my friend. Don't make promises to kids you don't intend to keep. Kids will always remember. Am I the jerk for walking out of my birthday dinner? Edit to add. In the past, they've recorded it on their phones and shared it on their personal social media pages with other family. Even in other countries, they find it funny. Still part of the edit. I also would be okay with singing for someone else. It's the making a whole spectacle of me that's the problem. I, 35 female, am an introvert and have severe anxiety. Being the center of attention is my biggest nightmare. I would be fine living alone in the woods as a recluse. Because of that, I hate to go out for my birthday. I'll either spend it alone or at home with close friends where I'm more comfortable. I have some friends and family who always want me to go out for my birthday with them, and sometimes I go. Unfortunately, even though I literally beg them not to, every once in a while someone will think it's funny to tell the staff it's my birthday and to have them do the whole dessert and sing happy birthday, and I literally go into a full-on panic attack. They think it's hilarious. I've even had them pull out cameras and record while they laugh. A week ago, my grandma passed. The family pushed and wanted to do a birthday dinner. Said it would be good to get out of the house. Some close friends also went. Well, we're finishing up dinner, and I hear the sound that literally filled me with anger and rage. It was the sounds of the line of waitstaff clapping as they're all walking towards us with a dessert with candles, and they start their restaurant's signature, loud, obnoxious birthday song. My brother and his wife start laughing. With the waitstaff about 5 feet away from our table, I got up and walked out of the restaurant, got in my car, and went home. My mom says she was mortified and says I was a major jerk, and that it wasn't only rude to everyone who came to my birthday, but also to the staff, and that she had to apologize profusely and leave an extra tip. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I'd tell my kids, it's only funny if it's funny for everyone. Being the eternal butt of their one-note joke is too much. It's not funny. It was never funny. Don't do your birthday with them again. I'm pretty sure that even seeing you this upset won't change their behavior. Not the jerk. I would absolutely get up to go to the bathroom as soon as you get to a restaurant with any of these people and ask for the manager and tell them that you do not want the birthday treatment no matter what anyone says. Not the jerk. Your family constantly oversteps your very reasonable boundaries to do what they want to do. I would refuse to go out with them anytime within 6 weeks of your birthday ever again. Also, do what you want to do. You're an adult, and no is a complete sentence. Not the jerk, but I agree that having a panic attack when people are singing happy birthday to you is not healthy. Unpopular opinion, but I'm going to say you're the jerk. I get social anxiety as well, but walking out is, in my opinion, a disproportionate response. Leaving the restaurant also drew attention to you, so maybe just sitting through the song and cake would have been less attention gathering. Unless someone intentionally harmed you, I don't think walking out is a fair response. It's a bit childish in my opinion. Am I the jerk for no longer wanting to put up with my boyfriend's mom? I, 30 female, can't stand my boyfriend, who's 29, his mom. It started last October when I found out that I was pregnant. I told my boyfriend not to tell anyone yet, since until we get the ultrasounds for our baby. But we agreed to tell his mom as he kept insisting on it. A few days later, I met with my aunts, and one of them said I shouldn't eat too much because it would be hard to give birth when I get heavy. I was shocked because I hadn't told anyone from my side of the family yet. I was devastated because I wanted to be the one to tell my family about my pregnancy when I was ready. I asked my boyfriend if he found it weird that my aunts already knew about my pregnancy, and he brushed it off like it was a normal thing by saying, "Oh, Mom must have mentioned it to them. Don't worry about it." A few days later, my boyfriend and I got into an argument about a vacation I booked for us months prior to finding out. I told him that we should still go since the flights were already booked and we can't cancel or refund them. We can still go sightseeing at least before we get anchored down to the house with a baby. He was strongly opposed to it and said that it's best we stayed home and that I rest. Later in the day, my boyfriend's mom calls me to check in. I told her that everything was fine. There was a lull, and she mentioned that it would be best that you stay home and rest until baby is here, and you shouldn't be wasting money on useless trips. I immediately wanted to drop the call. I felt suffocated. I confronted my boyfriend about it when he came home from work. He told me he didn't know how else to make me listen about not going on our trip, and he told his mom that I was being stubborn. I told him that we didn't need anyone else's opinion on how we live our lives, and that he shouldn't be telling his mom private matters. Then that's where I began to notice that every little thing I do, his mom would give me motherly advice. I got so stressed out about it. And then later on, I found out that during the days when my boyfriend was at work, he and his mom are on the phone for 2 to 3 hours catching up, almost daily. He has Wednesdays off, and his mom doesn't call him when he's home. I lost the baby in January of this year, and his mom still had a lot to say about how we should have listened to her. So, am I the jerk for no longer wanting to put up with my boyfriend's mom? Not the jerk. He won't change, she won't change. It's up to you to change and get out. Run. Don't walk away from this one before you get pregnant again and get stuck with this mom for as long as she lives. You're not in a relationship with him, you're in a relationship with them. I could go on, but you already know there's no fixing it. Don't let him try to say he'll change. His relationship with her will always be more important because she's programmed him that way since he was a toddler. Not the jerk, and run. OP. Hello everyone. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my problems. I want to say 2 things from reading all your comments. 1. I am in love with the mama's boy and potentially in a relationship with him and his mom. It's suffocating to think my boyfriend doesn't have a mind of his own and has to run to his mom to have opinions about our future. Thank you for letting me know that I wasn't the only crazy one here. 2. His whole family is toxic. His grandma is also very controlling. He said he didn't want to be like them, and he wasn't until… it infuriates me. I'll have a sit-down talk with him to finally establish my set boundaries. If he can't handle not telling his mom everything, then we won't work out. Am I the jerk for not buying nice food for my boyfriend? I, male 34, and my boyfriend, male 33, have been together for a very long time, and we used to have very cheap rent and disposable income. And as a result, we used to go out to eat at restaurants and have nice food regularly. But in the last 4 to 5 years, rent and bills have increased, and the cost of living has meant that we don't anymore. I still make an effort to buy nice ingredients and make nice food, often suggesting getting takeout from nice food places near us, but the cost of living crisis which hasn't really affected us too much, has made my boyfriend paranoid that we shouldn't spend much money on food since it's a waste. I'm a big foodie. I've been working in hospitality all my life. I love to cook, love to eat, and it bums me out when I have to settle for crappy food. I work a lot, and when I'm at home and he's cooking, maybe 1 to 2 times a week, it's 100% low effort, cheap cuts of bad quality meat, really fatty supermarket belly pork, chicken wings, canned sardines, processed meat disc things, value range jarred sauces, cheap vegetables with no seasoning, etc. I hate it and tend to re-prepare it into something that I like. But when I cook for the both of us, which is 3 to 4 times a week, I'll go to the butcher, get fresh vegetables, fresh herbs, nice spices, spend some time making something tasty with some sides, etc., and he always says how lovely it is. But when I suggest, maybe you can get some nice ingredients, or maybe you can go out with me once or twice and we split the bill, then he starts on this rant of, I actually enjoy cheap food. It's quick and simple, blah, blah, blah. And it annoys me because we have money. We work hard for it, and I have to sell for food that a student would eat. Today, I have a day off, first in 8 days, and he said to me, you buy and cook tea tonight. I've had a hard day. I suggested going out or getting a takeout, and he just sent a money emoji. So I went into the cupboard, made him a meal he made for us a week or 2 ago. Jarred tomato sauce, can of sardines, cooked some pasta, boiled some frozen vegetables, and plated it up and put it in the microwave for when he's ready to eat. Then I ordered myself a Chinese takeout. The takeout came, and he said, you didn't ask what I wanted. So I said, you told me you didn't want takeout. Your dinner is in the microwave. And he got really sad and upset. I explained I didn't forget about him. I cooked him a meal he claimed to really enjoy, then spent my money on something I really enjoy. He didn't talk to me for the rest of the night. That was yesterday, and he's not mentioned it today. Not the jerk. You made him food that he felt was suitable for the both of you. He didn't want takeout. What more could you do? What's happening isn't that he's preparing food that he likes. He's sandbagging it, getting the cheapest crap and preparing it in a haphazard way, hoping that you'll just take over the cooking. Some people legitimately believe that if you do a crappy job at something you don't want to do, you won't be asked to do it again. Problem solved. Am I the jerk for threatening to make my in-laws homeless? I, female 38, am the primary breadwinner for my household. My husband, who's 42, is semi-retired due to an injury at work. He's a great husband and has taken over all of the housework that needs to be done during the day. We share all the duties when I'm not working. Recently, his sister, her husband, and their 2 teen kids lost their home. We have a rental suite in our basement that we just use as a family area, so we agreed to let them live there. Because I'm paranoid, I had them sign a lease. A few days ago, my husband had an opportunity to do some consulting at his old work. He loves doing it because it gets him out of the house and he gets to see his old coworkers and friends. It was short notice, so we hadn't arranged babysitting. We asked his sister to watch our youngest for the day so he could go work, and she agreed. She then delegated the task to her 13-year-old son. Then she had her nap. The kid didn't want to disturb his mom during her nap, so he banged on my door while I was working to change a diaper. Fair enough. He's 13, so I see why he wouldn't be comfortable doing it himself. I asked where his mom was, and he said she was napping. I woke her up and told her that she had agreed to watch her niece and to do so. I waited for my husband to get home, and we discussed his family. We decided together that they needed to start paying the amount on the lease, leave, or start helping around the house. We took all the kids over to my mother-in-law's house, then we sat them down and had a talk. We gave them their options. They said I was a jerk for tricking them into signing a lease agreement and then not collecting it so I could evict them. I said that wasn't the only choice. I said that she was the one who chose to lay off a responsibility on a kid. I said that I was basically the one supporting her, and if she couldn't help, then she had to give me money or leave. Some further information. Neither her nor her husband have jobs right now. They're buying groceries with his unemployment benefits. I set up the lease because of horror stories that I've heard about people claiming to be tenants. There's absolutely nothing unreasonable about this. The fact that they are protesting this arrangement and demanding free lodging is a sign that you should just ask them to leave right now. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. You aren't threatening. You're having healthy rules and boundaries. You're giving them an entirely reasonable choice. Pay rent, contribute another way, or have a different living situation. There's nothing wrong with that. And good for you for setting up that lease. That was an extremely smart move. Neighbor playing music till past 4 a.m. and gets indignant and rude after I politely ask her to turn it down. I believe the text messages speak for themselves, but just for some extra context, this is a text exchange between me and my neighbor. We've been friends for 10 plus years and share a thin wall in an apartment. Monday, 3:07 a.m. Me. Could you turn your music down, please? The bass is coming through the wall. Thanks. I said thanks because I thought she had turned it down. Turns out the song had just ended and she kept playing music till past 4 a.m. But at that point, I passed out. These are the texts I woke up to. Monday, 5:55 a.m. Her. Oh, please, get over yourself. My one day off. Mean gesture emoji. 6:55 a.m. Me. Not my day off. Get over yourself. I was super polite. At 3 a.m. too, which nobody else would have been. At that point, I'm up and rage-fueled, so I put my speaker, smallest speaker I have by the way, next to her wall and turn on the bassiest music I have while doing my morning work. 7:45 a.m. Her. Keith, for the love of God, you are so selfish and it truly is insane. I have not had an opportunity to listen to music or be out in months, and the one time, all you can think about is yourself. It amazes me how truly selfish and self-aware that you are. Sometimes I'm like, is he even my friend? Or is he just some jerk who lives next to me? You literally only care about yourself. Me. Anytime you ask me to do some basic neighbor stuff, I do it. I ask you to do even more basic neighbor stuff, and you tell me to go forget myself. Her. And now you are aggressively playing music because you can only think about yourself, right? For years, I never said anything because I was like, one day it will be my turn. And now, look at you. Disgusting. You're pathetic. You only see yourself. It's amazing. Me. You only care about yourself. It's unacceptable socially and legally to play music after 2 a.m. That's when bars have to close here. Don't ask me for crap again. Her. I've been working 80-hour weeks, and I got one night to enjoy myself. I cannot believe all you can think about is you. It amazes me. Me. Then get some headphones. I'd like to play music every morning, but I don't because I think of you and our other neighbors. I hope you're wasted because any sober, reasonable person will see how in the wrong you are. Her. I'll live without you. You break my heart. It's like you don't even see me. After 12 years, it's just you that matters. Me. Sweet. Just please have common courtesy and keep the music down after 12 a.m. Sunday through Thursday. That's literally all that I'm asking. Her. Again and again, and I wonder why I even try with you. Me. My sleep matters more to me than you being a self-absorbed jerk. Her. You can buzz off, dude. Me. Blocked. I'd call the police past midnight. It has to be against some noise ordinance. After calling the police, I would inform the landlord, assuming you both rent from the same person, of the action you had to take. Don't let the behavior go. It only gets worse. Am I the jerk for letting my stepkids call me dad, even though it upsets my wife? I married my wife last year, after 4 years of dating, and we mixed our families. Her 2 sons, Dylan and Tyler, who are 16 and 11 now, and my daughter, Sam, who's 18 now. Our kids accommodated to the idea of living together pretty well. Dylan and Ty's father and my wife got divorced when Tyler was born, and they agreed he would only have visitation rights. Around 2 or 3 years ago, Tyler called me dad while we were having dinner, and that night, my wife asked me to correct her kids when they call me dad, out of respect for their actual father. I found it weird, but I agreed to, because in the end, they're her kids, although I never ended up doing it. This week, Dylan had a football match, and Tyler a piano lesson, which my wife usually picks them up after. This time, both she and I didn't have to work, so I suggested picking them up together. Dylan practically jumped to our car, and then we all went to pick up Tyler. And since I was there, I decided to meet his piano teacher too. When she met my wife, Dylan, and me, she greeted us and asked me if I was the kids' dad. I sincerely forgot about that promise I made years ago and said I indeed was their father. My wife almost instantly corrected me with, "Stepfather." And then Dylan said out loud, "Mom." The return home was awkward, and when we arrived, she called me out for breaking the promise we had by saying I'm the kid's dad. To make it worse, this morning, I notice the kids are acting distant towards their mother, and they deliberately are calling me dad whenever she's around. I feel guilty because it's the first time there's been such tension between them, and it's my fault. Am I the jerk for calling them my kids? Your wife is working towards an estranged relationship with her boys. We can parent as much as we want, but we will never control our kids' feelings. She has assigned herself way too much power and her kids too little autonomy. We aren't talking about 6-year-olds. You didn't do anything other than step up to the plate that another man abandoned. Not the jerk. The whole goal of step-parenting is to have this kind of relationship. How can OP's wife be so mad about something so many people would dream of having? Because she's still dreaming of reconciling with the biological father. That was my first thought. Then I read the comments, and apparently the biological father misses visitation but still sees OP's wife regularly, which implies they're having an affair behind OP's back. I just hope OP isn't putting money into Dylan's college fund. Why? Why this in particular? If Dylan considers OP to be his dad and OP feels much the same, would it be so bad? The kid's done nothing wrong and his education isn't for his mother's benefit. I created a college fund for my ex's kid, who I love very much. A bad feeling between the parents shouldn't affect the kid. Not the jerk. She's upset because you are a father to her kids and love them and they love you back? I could understand their dad being upset, but not her. And honestly, not even him. He has visitation. You live with them. OP. He doesn't even visit them, so I actually would get mad if he protested. Not the jerk. I would understand if he was still in the picture, but I don't understand why your wife would want them to call you stepdad out of respect for an absent father. Respect is earned. He's done nothing to earn it and nothing to earn the title of dad. On the other hand, clearly you have. ETA. Okay, I see a lot of people responding to my comment, talking about the wife having an affair with the ex-husband. I didn't see his comments about the ex-husband still meeting with his wife regularly before I commented this. However, I still stand by my statement. He might still be actively present in the wife's life, but he is certainly not around enough in the kids' lives to earn the title of dad. Not the jerk. If the kids think of you as dad, then you're dad. Dad is not limited to biological father. Why can't the kids have two dads? Also, it should be seen as the highest of compliments. OP's wife should be grateful that her sons see and feel that way about their stepfather. It definitely isn't always the case. Your wife is the weird one, dude. It's almost as if she only wanted you to be there for the financial support, not to be a father to her kids. Her kids like you. The fact that they got upset on your behalf is proof of that. That's why they're deliberately going out of their way to call you dad. She hurt their feelings. She may not see you as her kid's dad, but they sure as heck see you as their dad. OP. That's the reason I never could tell them to stop calling me dad, even when I still wasn't as attached to them as I am now. Their tone was always affectionate and innocent, and nowadays, it even makes me happy that they consider me their dad. Being a stepdad was one of the best things I've had happen to me. Neither kid ever called me dad, and I was okay with that. If they did, I would have been okay with that also. The youngest is now 30 and still calls me dude. Close enough for me. I'm wondering if your wife is afraid of what her ex would do or say when her kids start calling you dad. Question, is the biological father's family present in the boys' lives? If they are, they can cause problems with your wife. OP, my wife and her ex are friends, but his family aren't present on Dylan and Tyler's lives. In fact, dude isn't either, to be honest. That honestly blows my mind. I'd have a really hard time being friends with the guy who abandoned our kids. I don't know what is up with your wife, but obviously the boys love you, so you're doing something right. OP. From what she told me, they broke up because they weren't attracted to each other anymore and preferred to go back to being friends. Well, now I wonder if she's just hung up on the guy and is upset that her kids have written him off. What? Hang on. She's friendly towards a guy who doesn't give a hoot about his own and her kids? Like, she can actually have a friendship going with him despite this? I predict in a couple years, her going back to him and leaving you with the kids. Seriously. And you'll be the winner here. Print out the internet? Yes, ma'am. This is about a decade ago, but still well within the realm of the internet. I was a technical writer for the government and had slowly been transferring our old employee handbook, think government bureaucracy from the 1940s, into a modern and actually useful document. Think one page with our policies and links to useful websites, like Office of Personnel Management, forms for workman's comp, etc. My boss wanted the whole thing printed out on her desk the next morning. This was Monday of the Thanksgiving weekend. I printed out the 200 or so pages and just had the links to the various websites in bold. This took about an hour, and I left it on her desk before going home that night. She calls me in her office on Tuesday afternoon and proceeds to yell at me about how stupid I am. Do I think people can just go to a website when it's on paper? No, I need to print everything out. I calmly tell her that these sites are pretty dense and deep, and it would be about 10,000 pages. She says she does not care. It needs to be on her desk first thing Monday morning. Mind you, this is now Tuesday, and we usually had some of Wednesday off. I was not really planning to work Thursday, Thanksgiving, or Friday, as I had applied for leave, and I was looking forward to a nice, relaxing, long weekend. I don't have family, but I did have plans. But okay, I asked for and got the request to have everything pertaining to the employee handbook online in a printed format. I also had real work and real deadlines. A quick bit of context. She was my boss. She did my performance appraisals, and she could make my life miserable and possibly fire me. However, my clients were teams that put together engineering plans, biological assessments, scientific journal articles, reports to Congress, etc., that had real-world deadlines. On some of these, if you missed the publication date, your agency paid $100,000 a day in delay fees. Or you would upset a congressperson, which is never a good idea. And I was really getting sick and tired of my boss's requests that took me away from my actual work. So I was printing and printing all of the rest of Tuesday afternoon and then Wednesday. I had to go to the site, print, click on the next link, print, etc. On Wednesday, we got a congressional, a letter from a Congress critter that was actually important. Had we not gotten that, I might not have done what I did. I got overtime approved pronto to take care of this request, so I did work Thanksgiving. As I was doing that, I kept on printing and printing. I used up every sheet of paper in our 14-story building. I kept on researching the response for the congressional, printing, going to the next floor to carefully get that packet of paper to tuck under the appropriate page, etc. I had paper in about 20 different conference rooms. I could have done the congressional in about 8 hours, but it was not due until Monday, and all of this printing took me a good 24 hours of work. So I put in for 32 hours, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Got it done. This is now 2 stacks of paper, each about 6 feet high. I was way under in my estimate of 10,000 pages, as it was more like 30,000. Remember, I had at least 5 printers going at once for 4 days, etc. I put this in my boss's office, which was already none too clean and pristine. I got written up with a disciplinary hearing and everything. The charge was malicious compliance. I kept my job only because I did have her request in an email. My new boyfriend wants me to put his name on the house. I, 27 female, have been with my boyfriend, who's 29, for 6 months. Our relationship so far has been awesome. He's sweet and we get along so well. I've been saying since we met that in 2 years I'm going to buy a house, that I'll be working myself as hard as I can in that time to make it happen. A little context for you guys. I'm a single mom of 2 kids who are 11 and 8. I've been through what feels like a lifetime of struggle, and though I'll spare you all those details, I'm sure you can imagine. One of those struggles was being homeless for about 12 months. When I was growing up, my dad raised me in our family home. I didn't have much, but having a stable place to live was something that I never took for granted growing up, something that I've been dying to give my babies. For the past 4 to 5 years, I've been doing well for myself, making money as a tattoo artist, my childhood dream job, and I couldn't be more happy. Now to the issue at hand. The other evening, my boyfriend brought up me buying a house and said that he would feel weird moving into a house with me if it was only mine, that he wants to be included in the whole process, including owning the home with me. He isn't currently working, he just got fired from his job, and when he was working, our income gap was quite large. That being said, he won't be able to contribute 50% of a down payment. I explained to him that this house isn't really for me, that this house is for my kids and their future, that my first home is going to be bought with the intent to have them living in it as young adults, and I'll be purchasing something else for myself when that time comes. It has nothing to do with him, and I can't risk the possibility that the house will be gone if he and I were to split up. I told him if he moved in that I wouldn't expect him to pay on my mortgage, but that he would help out by paying other bills. He didn't seem to like that idea and insisted he would want to pay 50-50. So, am I the jerk for not compromising and buying a house to keep only in my name, even if marriage was something I decided I wanted down the road? I don't want to take any chances on my kids having what I've always wanted to be able to give them. No, you're not the jerk. He's asking for a free ride. In the future, if he contributes, you can always reevaluate, but he's not been with you long enough to demand half your house and half your future. If it's too terrible for him, then he can just skip on down the road. OP. Honestly, even if he were able to contribute 50-50, I still don't want him included in owning this home. I told him I'm open to buying property and including him on any investments after this one, but that didn't seem to mean anything to him. I just want this one thing no one could ever take from me. I've seen too much divorce and messy breakups to not keep that in the back of my mind. I couldn't keep from getting emotional during the conversation because it means so much to me. After this, I'm definitely thinking about the relationship differently. I don't know, it's just I can't really relate to how he's feeling. I would never expect to be given something just because I'm with the person, not having put any work into making it happen. My mind just doesn't work that way. I worked in family law during law school, so I get what you're saying regarding divorce and breakups. You're fine with wanting your own place. My mind also works the same as you. You need to take care of you and your kids first. You've only been with him for 6 months, right? It shouldn't be an issue for him, and congrats on getting your dream job. Not the jerk. A jobless, financially insecure guy is upset he won't get to co-own a house with you. Red flag. If you're still with this jerk in 2 years, when you buy this house, you can reevaluate the situation. But he better be able to pay half of the down payment and the ongoing mortgage. If you ever decide to marry him, make sure you have a solid prenup. Not the jerk. Unless you're married, you never put a boyfriend or girlfriend's name on a home you're buying. You're totally right about that, and I'm glad you know how important this is. With that being said, I've seen several stories like this before where the roles were flipped and the responses are always the opposite. People tell the girlfriend to leave the boyfriend if he won't put her name on the house he's buying, and they tell her she deserves so much better. I know I'll get downvoted to heck for this, but I can't help but feel like it's a double standard often seen here on Reddit. A story like this wouldn't be complete without at least one idiot like you trying to point out my double standard. Let me spell this out for you since you're about as intelligent as a 5-year-old. When it comes to money, America, jobs, property, taxes, etc., y'all basically have it on easy mode. Why do you think the pay gap is still so huge even in 2023? If we can get something simple from a relationship, like being included on the house, it's only fair because of how hard it is for us in today's society. With men having life on easy mode, the least y'all could do is include us in purchases like homes. Don't like it? Stay a sad, lonely, single jerk for the rest of your life. Yowza, don't you sound pleasant. Am I the jerk for leaving my business to my protege instead of my kids? I, 58 male, have 2 kids, John, who's 32, and Susan, who's 29, and I started a business back in my late 20s after they were born. I've been growing it for the better part of 3 decades. However, my wife and I agreed that we have more than enough for me to retire, and so I am. Some backstory. Back when John was in high school, I gave him a job at my business, and soon after he started, he asked if I could give his friend, Sam, who's 32, now 17 when he started, a job as well. John was not interested in the work and quit after 4 months, and I will wholeheartedly admit that this was very painful at the time, but Sam loved the job. He continued to work throughout college, where he went into the same field as me, and I gave him a promotion when he completed his studies. Sam is very much my protege, and I see him as my second son. John studied finance and, after working at some other places, asked me if I could give him a job. I did, and he's extremely good at what he does. I love the fact that I get to work with the both of them. I took my wife, John, Susan, and Sam out to dinner last week to tell them my plan for retirement. Sam will take my place and own 60%, while John and Susan would each get 20%. I've never seen John so furious. He asked how I could choose Sam over him, my own flesh and blood. He also said he's the one who studied running businesses and that he should be the one in charge. I told him that he has only worked for me for a few years and already quit once, whereas Sam has been working for me for 15 years, knows all of the clients, the products, and the production team, and has their respect. He then asked if he had my respect, and I told him of course, he's the best at what he does, but that doesn't mean he's the best fit for being the boss. My wife and Susan tried de-escalating the situation, but John left in a huff and hasn't been talking to anyone but Susan since. I know John's hurt, but Sam is the better choice since he's been working directly under me for years and knows the ins and outs better than anyone but me. I've tried talking to John and apologizing, but he won't let me. Am I the jerk? Edit. Some people keep asking why I gave Susan the same amount and what her relationship to the business is. She's worked off and on as a contractor, and, especially since she has kids of her own, I wanted to give her some financial stability. It's the same with John, as he's never expressed any interest in running the place and came back to work for me because he got laid off and had a hard time finding another job. I wanted to ensure some financial stability for him while making sure Sam was the one in charge. Edit 2. First, a point of clarity. Nothing has actually been signed yet, and I'm still in charge. Susan came to the house, and we just had a long discussion. She's been talking with John, and she told me he feels like this is me telling John that Sam is my real son. I asked her if she felt the same way. She doesn't, but she sees how it looks to John. I then asked her what she thinks I should do, and she told me I should lower her share and give it to John. She said she would rather give him the money than watch him disappear from the family. I also asked if she knew whether he actually wanted and/or expected to run the business, and as far as she knew, he didn't and was surprised at how poorly he reacted. Before she left, I asked her to try and get him to have a conversation about this, and she told me, sure, but don't count on it being soon. Edit 3. I'm sick of the comments saying I don't care about my kids. My wife doesn't see it that way. My daughter doesn't see it that way. Yes, I wasn't always present in their lives, and yes, my business did take priority at times, but I did my absolute best to be there as much as I possibly could. I made time for graduations, sports events, and other big milestones and events as best I could, and I was there for most of them. I may not have been present at all times, but I did my best to try to be. Also, Sam is not a complete stranger. Not the jerk, but you lack emotional intelligence. It would be obvious to most people that this should be a conversation to have over a long period of time, individually with each of the three concerned parties. Announcing the completed decision was bound to set off some unpredictable feelings. Best solution as I see it would have been to sell the business at a below market value to the three of them in exactly the proportions you suggested, but only after individually explaining your plan to each of them and getting their feedback, starting with Susan because she's the one most removed from the business, but most likely to be able to predict her brother's reaction and tweaking the plan based on their input. But now you've created a rift between them, and it will be incredibly difficult for them to operate as partners. You'll have to talk to them again and find a way to show John that he's not second fiddle to your second son. I actually disagree with this, but I'm also team not the jerk. I don't think OP owed it to anyone to tweak his plan, even family. Maybe that's really cold and heartless of me to say, but writing that OP lacks emotional intelligence simply because this is not a choice that should be made based on emotions isn't the best read of the situation in my opinion. OP made his choice with his business, and it's the right one for his business, his life's work. His kids are cared for financially, they have stability, and OP's business has the best possible candidate taking over. That's fine. That's a really good solution, in fact, given that it's stated that his son never had a vested interest in running the business. Why would OP give his life's work to someone that's uninterested in sustaining it? OP's son shouldn't have assumed he would be the owner. That's really insane entitlement. Running a business requires more than a blood relation. His feelings are hurt and he didn't get what he wanted. But so what? He's an adult. This family has a lot of time for this to smooth over. I think OP made the best decision for everyone and isn't obligated to cater to the potential or material reactions of his kids when it comes to his decision. And he shouldn't need to sell his business below market value. Not catering to his kids' emotions doesn't mean he lacks emotional intelligence, and it doesn't mean that he should have done things differently. You're the jerk, because John did sacrifice more than Sam, and way more than Susan. Being the kid of an entrepreneur is hard. I know, I am one. The amount of sacrifices families make and the stress the family takes on when business is slow is immeasurable. And you gave Sam a significant controlling share of the business to boot. You just made a dangerous business decision. If John is a good businessman, he can still do over Sam and will likely go no contact with you. You're the jerk. Firstly, when John was working for you originally, he was in high school. At that age, many kids go against what their parents do or want. It's totally normal. So I'm not surprised he left. But he came back. He studied something that would add value to the business, and he came back and worked for you. Secondly, you're giving Susan, who did absolutely nothing for the business, equal share to John, who's been working for you and contributing to the business. How is that fair? Lastly, Sam may have worked for you for all these years and may know the ins and outs of the business. However, at no point did you ever have a conversation with John and Susan about leaving the business to Sam. So it would be a natural conclusion that you would be leaving this business that you've built up to your own kids. Is there any way you can leave the ownership of the business to John and Susan equally, but with a clause that Sam is to run it or be in charge of it for however long he wants? Something like that? If you had done this to me, I wouldn't be hurt. I'd be quitting the business and opening up a rival business and putting yours in the ground. Nor would I be speaking to you again. Not because you didn't leave the business to me, but because you announced this without even a discussion with me, blindsiding me. As far as you and John are concerned, I'm pretty certain a mere apology isn't going to cut it. My thoughts exactly. You're the jerk. John is working for the company and studied to do so. It goes against the idea that you're dividing it on merit. So obviously John is upset because you're saying Sam is worth way more than he is, while John is equal to someone who does not work at the company. That's gotta hurt. I thought the people on Reddit couldn't stand the idea of nepotism. The minions on Reddit can be pretty unpredictable. Best to not try to rationalize their thinking. You also probably don't want to be asking them for financial, business, or parental advice. That's not the kind of stuff they learn in Mummy's basement. I parked in a pregnant person's spot and all heck broke loose. I'm not sure how popular these are in other places, but in the southern US, some places have special parking spots for veterans and pregnant individuals, and sometimes they're the same spot. I'm currently about 34 weeks pregnant and have had kind of a rough pregnancy, so I avoid going out often. Yesterday, my husband couldn't go to the grocery store and I had to do it. The grocery store I went to had one of the aforementioned parking spots free, and I parked there. As I was getting out, a man pulled up behind me and started yelling at me, telling me it was illegal to park there. It's for veterans. I told him it was for veterans and pregnant women, and I was a pregnant woman. He said he earned the right to park there by fighting for our country. I apologized that he felt that way, and I was grateful for his service, but if he needs the spot for disability reasons, there are plenty of open spots. Some details. He was a young dude, and of course, I don't know if he was disabled or not. He was in his car and I couldn't see him, as well as not all disabilities are visible. He called me a jerk and drove away, and when I told my husband about the interaction, he told me while it did say for pregnant women and veterans, he deserved it more and I should have backed off. My dad and brother agree, and now I feel like a jerk, but my sister told me I was in the right and not to worry. Am I the jerk? Very small update. I told my husband it was very uncool of him to treat me like that, especially with him knowing how anxious I was to go to the store and him knowing for a fact it hurts to walk and that the spot was for both of us. We had a bit of back and forth, but he apologized. My dad also pretty much immediately apologized as well, saying he shouldn't have sided with the man who called his baby girl a jerk. But I think my mom and sister really laid into him. My brother is a jerk, so I don't expect an apology from him. Edit. I realize I worded my post weird. People have asked why I even engaged with him. We were in a parking lot that had one row of spots on either side. He pulled up behind my car, but where I needed to walk, so I would have had to walk past him, which I didn't feel safe doing. So I stayed near my car in case I needed to get back in. Edit. A couple people have asked my age. I'm 19. Yes, I'm married. Yes, I'm pregnant. It's a long and involved story. I didn't want to be married or a mom at 19, but life happens and we make the best of it. I'm just answering some questions. Not the jerk. It was meant for pregnant women and veterans. You were there first, so you can use it. Bad luck for this guy. Not the jerk. Parking spots for pregnant people are about need, not who deserves it more. You needed it. You were right to use it. Your husband sounds like he doesn't have a good idea about how challenging the third trimester is. You should suggest he read up on it because he's sounding like the jerk here. The veteran too, obviously. Am I the jerk for telling my brother and sister-in-law that my nephews don't owe her the ability to adopt them? My two nephews are 20 and 19 years old. Sister-in-law married my brother when the boys were 7 and 8. They lost their mom at 5 and 6. She had been sick for a couple of years, and my brother was back dating after 6 months. Sister-in-law was his third date, and they married after a few months of dating. Sister-in-law has always loved the boys. I remember her telling me before the wedding she hoped one day they might call her mom sometimes. She was also hoping she would be close to the boys' maternal family. My brother just has me and our other sister who lives overseas, and she has no family. So the maternal family were the only real extended family. The boys do not call her mom. They never have. Their maternal family are also not close to sister-in-law, or my brother for that matter, but they never really were close. Sister-in-law and my brother tried to have a baby for many years, and ultimately she had to come to terms with the reality that she was not going to have a biological kid. During those years of trying to have one, she didn't withdraw from the boys or anything, but she did tell me at one point she wanted to bring up to the boys that they could call her mom. I told her to let them come up with it on their own and to focus on just having a positive relationship. Sister-in-law went through early menopause a couple of years ago, which permanently ended any hope she would get pregnant someday. Last year, she and my brother sat the boys down and expressed that she would love to adopt them if they were willing. The boys were not. I heard about this via the boys, who were not happy it was brought up. They felt it came out of nowhere and felt they had never given an indication they would want that. A month or two ago, the topic was brought up again, and then sister-in-law asked the boys if they loved her in any real, meaningful way, and whether there was something of a compromise that could happen where she be acknowledged as a mother to them. They said no to the adoption, no to calling her mom, and they ignored the topic of whether they loved her or not. She pleaded with them to reconsider and said she would be an amazing second mom, that she would be there for them like always and would keep pouring her love into their lives. When they didn't agree, it turned into an argument and the boys left. Sister-in-law cried her heart out after this. I saw her and my brother for the first time since the request came up a second time the other day. Sister-in-law was talking about how much it hurt her. She brought up the maternal family again, saying she could not understand why they wouldn't want to add to the family and couldn't welcome her into their family and hearts. Then she was saying how she really thought the boys would feel like she had earned the adoption. My brother called them kids and said that they could ask in a few years again, and hopefully they will have grown up. I said the boys did not owe her an adoption and gently suggested they figure out a way to come to terms with it not happening. My brother was furious, and sister-in-law looked as though I had betrayed her. Am I the jerk? Those boys aren't her kids. They're fully grown, legally recognized adults. They've made it crystal clear what they do and don't want regarding this subject. Your sister-in-law has had it rough, but honestly sounds more like she needs therapy to come to terms with what she can't have. All she's doing is permanently damaging any relationship she could have had with your nephews. And the maternal side of the family, they lost their daughter and had to watch as someone tried their hardest to take over their daughter's role, trying to effectively erase their daughter in the process. They're under no obligation to welcome her into that role. Not the jerk, you told her the truth. The same truth that your nephews have been trying to get through to her for years. Your sister-in-law desperately needs therapy. Projecting her grief about her own infertility onto her stepkids at this level is really not okay at all. And I say this as an infertile woman myself. I'll be shocked if they want a relationship with her at all after this. You're 100% correct, and your brother and sister-in-law have lost their minds trying to force this issue. Not the jerk. She's not their mother. They don't owe her anything. No jerks here. I don't see what crime sister-in-law did other than naively hoping and then being sad when life wasn't a fairy tale. She wasn't graceful in dealing with her pain of realizing the two kids she helped raise didn't have the same depth of feeling for her that she had for them. I feel like maybe folks could have a little sympathy for her in that regard. The boys are not to blame, and it doesn't sound like you were cruel. You mentioned that Dad dated 6 months and married 2 years after Mom's passing, but that doesn't sound unreasonable. If he was ready, why not? His sons don't owe him acceptance of his new spouse, and he doesn't owe them years as a widower. You don't mention any bad parenting other than this argument with the adult kids, so it seems like a sad and uncomfortable situation, but no real jerks. Maybe Dad was ready to move on after 6 months, but his kids weren't. The problem with sister-in-law is her pushing the issue. She honestly should have never even brought up wanting them to call her Mom. She should have waited to develop a place in their hearts organically and understood that she could never be their mom. Wanting to be the mom of kids when their mother has passed is incredibly selfish on her part. Then, after seeing that this is not the relationship they have with her, trying to push the issue of adoption, it sounds like the brother and his wife are the problem. They're not only delusional, but selfish because they aren't even thinking about how the kids felt. Also, her love seems a bit transactional, which is always a red flag in interpersonal relationships. Basically, I did this, so I expect this. She's not concerned over building a relationship where people actually love and care for each other genuinely. You're the jerk, and so are your nephews. My heart goes out to your sister-in-law. Your brother sounds like a good guy, and his kids are spoiled brats. I feel bad she wasted her life raising these little creeps who don't even love her. How ungrateful they sound. And all of you morons here on Reddit defending them, y'all are the ones who need therapy just like those boys do. I hope that woman can one day adopt kids who will love her, since those boys are incapable of showing her the love she does deserve. My neighbor has been stealing my Wi-Fi for months. Gets exactly what she deserves. I, 23 female, live next door to Jenny. She lives with her husband and their kid. I work almost all day outside, and in my spare time, I play games on PS4 during the week. I pay for good internet because I like not having any lag while playing or any internet slowness. My PS4 is in my room and the internet router is in the living room, so it's Wi-Fi and not cable. And because of that, I constantly check the internet speed and it's always X amount. A few months ago, I invited Jenny's family over for dinner and gave them my Wi-Fi password. Apparently, theirs was weak at my house, and I went through politeness. Last month, I started to notice very bad internet speed, 1/10 of what it was before, and a few technical visits to resolve, until the technician asked if I had passed the password to someone in the building, and I put the pieces together. I then changed the password because the internet was crap, and I didn't want to share it with 3 more people. Last week, the neighbor knocked on my door and asked for my Wi-Fi password because her internet wasn't working, and I commented saying that I changed it because there were people on it from other apartments that were using it. She got the message and said she was having a hard time and couldn't pay for her own internet. So in desperation, she used mine, and if I couldn't give her the new password, promising that they would only use it at night when they got home from work. I denied, saying that night was my leisure time too, and that I didn't want to have bad internet, and I don't want to pay more for the internet to be good for 4 people. And even more so for her to be using it for a month without my permission. She stomped off and, oh goodness, my new image in the building is being the petty jerk who doesn't want to share Wi-Fi with people who are struggling financially. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Why should you have to pay the bills for her, especially when she was stealing it and making you suffer through trying to figure out what was wrong? And it's definitely not a one-time thing. They did it constantly, and I'm 100% sure it's not just for sending emails or something work-related. Must be streaming something or other stuff, and it's more than just 1 or 2 people using it to make OP's side so slow. 100% I agree. I live with my boyfriend, and we had another roommate. Boyfriend would game, I would send occasional work emails and did other remote work, and roommate would do nothing but, very loudly, stream movies when she came home. Internet would always be fine when it was just me occasionally checking emails and my boyfriend gaming. But the minute the roommate came home, the internet would practically stop working. My emails wouldn't even send at all, and games became completely unplayable. When the roommate moved out, we haven't had issues with the internet speed since. Am I the jerk for kicking my brother and his family out after his son stole my engagement ring? The reason I, 26 male, know is because I literally caught him in my room going through my things. And it's on camera. My nephew is 9 and he has a habit of stealing things. They've gotten in trouble a few times at stores because he'd leave with something in his pocket. But of course, because he's a kid, they usually just say he forgot he had it. Even at school, my brother has told me they've had to come talk to the principal on a couple of occasions. Doesn't seem like they've done anything to stop it. They had to come stay here with me because my brother lost his job and they weren't going to make it with all their bills, including rent. He's doing Uber right now while he searches for a job, and they can move out. I didn't want to because of my nephew specifically, but family is family, I guess. A month ago, I finally bought an engagement ring for my girlfriend that I was planning on proposing to soon, but now I don't know. It's a $4,000 ring that I spent over a year saving up for. It's been hidden in my room under one of the drawers. One time, when I found him snooping in my room, I told my brother to control his kid, then got one of those cheap spy cams in my room just in case. Then, last week, I noticed it was out of its box. After checking the camera, it showed he was in there again when I wasn't home. My brother and his wife have yelled at him. He says he left it by the TV in the guest room, but it's not there. They looked through all their stuff and his too. I know for a fact he's lying about not having it because that's the same thing he said about one of my watches he took, then ended up finding it. By the second day, my brother tells me that they can't find it at all. And I told him either they find the ring or he repays me the $4,000 I spent on it. If not, they can't stay here anymore. My brother got really upset. He told me I know how their situation is right now. And yeah, it's a tough spot, but I couldn't ignore the fact that his kid he can't parent took something extremely important to me that cost a lot of time and money. They were given a week to leave my house if they don't find the ring. They're having to stay at a cheap motel, but my brother won't stop begging to come back because what they're paying right now each night is coming directly out of their savings. He won't stop calling me heartless about letting something like this come between helping them out through a difficult time, and my nephew keeps saying he's sorry. It's just hard right now to want them around. Don't even know what to do about the ring, and every time I think about it, it just makes me so mad that it's hard to care about their situation. Does that make me a jerk? Not the jerk. They sold the ring. I think so too. At this point, why won't his nephew say where it went? The thing with kleptomaniacs is they often don't know what to do with the things they steal. They may have washed it down the sink, flushed it down the toilet, buried it in the garden, etc., just to hide it. It's not so much about having things, it's about taking them. It's highly unfortunate that he took something so important, and his parents definitely need to get him help and should have done so already, which could have prevented this. Okay, I want to make a couple of suggestions. The first is to use a metal detector in and around your house and yard. The second is, if his parents really haven't sold it, think about where you might hide something if you were a kid. Somewhere that seems like a permanent and safe hiding space, especially if he knew he was moving and wouldn't be able to take it on him. As a kid, I always felt like the backyard was a permanent space. Look under bricks that can be moved or in any trees. The third thing I was thinking, make a report with the police. If it's possible to scare him into talking, it will. If you and he need other resources, they may be able to point you in the right direction. His parents are responsible for him. You can't just let a year's worth of savings go. Even if they can't pay it back right away, they might say, "But we're family, let it go." But equally, family wouldn't want you to lose a year's worth of your savings and to have had such a monumental milestone for you ruined. My sister demands I pay for her vacation, but she won't agree to babysit. My 32 male family is planning a vacation for this summer. Both my parents, my older brother, and my sister-in-law, my younger sister, Camila, who's 22, and my husband, my 2 kids, who are 10 and 8, and I are all planning to go. We're all planning to stay in a resort for 2 weeks. This will obviously be a bit expensive, at least $2,000 per person, and that is an enormous amount of money in my currency. Camila is in her last semester of university and will start a full-time job in August. Right now, she's not working and lives with my parents, not passing judgment on her for being unemployed because my brother and I went through the same at her age. Camila called me last week to ask if we could pay for her ticket and accommodation. My parents would pay for food and activities. My husband and I can't comfortably afford our own family, but adding Camila would put financial pressure on us. I told her that I would discuss it with my husband and then I would call her. So my husband and I agreed that we would be willing to pay for her if she would babysit our kids on certain occasions. Of course, not every day and without notice, but at least twice a week for 2 hours for 2 months. She would basically be the replacement for our current babysitter. Anyway, I texted her basically saying what I just wrote, and she replied, "Absolutely not." So I called her to ask why she was so against this arrangement, which I think benefits both of us. She gets to go on vacation, and we have a babysitter we trust and don't spend more than our monthly budget. Camila said that we were manipulating her into doing unpaid labor for us and forcing her to say yes because neither our brother or parents could afford to pay for her. She also said that she's way too busy with her last semester of uni and finals. I told her that she could do all of her school stuff in our house. My kids are very well behaved and need very little supervision, but she still said that she wouldn't do it. So I then told her I was very sorry, but if she didn't accept, then we couldn't pay for her to go on vacation. So now she's incredibly mad at me. But now my mom is also angry with me because she wants to have a family vacation and she knows my husband and I do have the money to pay for Camila and family helps family, which I agree with. But I believe that help must be reciprocal, and right now, Camila is not reciprocating that help. My brother and dad just want to settle this down. They are not taking sides. Not the jerk. Unpaid labor? Did she miss the part where her pay was a $2,000 holiday? This is a win-win for both of you. In fact, she comes out slightly more on top from the whole deal. So, family helps family? Only when it comes to paying for expensive vacations, but not for childcare? Gotcha. Your sister is living on another planet. Not the jerk. Not the jerk at all. Your sister is a piece of work and spurning an incredibly generous offer. Her labor is far from unpaid. Looking at your arrangement, you're asking for approximately 35 hours of labor in return for a $2,000 trip. That's close to $60 an hour. That would be an amazing offer for a 22-year-old in the US. And I'm guessing from the my currency answer that you live in a lower cost of living country than the US, where the offer is even more generous. You're not the jerk at all. Your sister sucks. You're the jerk, especially your family. It's rude that nobody was thinking about her financial situation when planning this vacation. You and the family expected this problem to solve itself by some magical means, and now you act surprised. She's not entitled to your money, and it's also putting you in an uncomfortable place. Because of this, I think the offer's reasonable, but it's forced, leaving her with little choice, and I can see why she's annoyed. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my gender reveal cupcakes? I, female 22, found out last week my baby's gender, and it's a girl. My family are excited, and I decided to do a small gender reveal over the Easter weekend. I had this planned for Saturday, so a few days before, I asked a small local business if she could please make 12 cupcakes with pink and blue icing on top and pink icing in the middle. She agreed and said they would be ready to collect Friday evening. The plan was to pick up the cupcakes on Friday, invite friends and family over Saturday, and give some guests a cupcake which would reveal the gender. I only invited a few guests as my apartment is fairly small, and I didn't want to do a large gender reveal anyway, just something cute and fun. Plus, everyone loves cupcakes. So Friday evening came. The small business owner, Claire, gave me her address to collect the cakes from her, said that they would cost £25 and they're ready to collect whenever. I drove to her apartment and knocked on the door. She greeted me there with a box of cupcakes and they looked amazing. They were exactly how I'd imagined them and I thanked her for them. She gave me the box, but just as she did, her large pet dog came running up to me, barking and jumped at me, knocking the box of cupcakes all over the floor. Claire apologized and shut the dog inside. He was still barking and jumping at the door. She said it's because he gets excited when people come and visit, but he wouldn't have hurt me as he's friendly. At this point, I didn't know the damage to the cupcakes as the box landed upside down. I picked it up and the cakes were ruined. The icing had smashed all over the box and some cakes had spilled out onto the ground. Claire looked horrified as I understand she spent a few hours making them for me. She apologized and said she could remake them for free, but they wouldn't be ready until Sunday. I said, unfortunately, I'm expecting my guests tomorrow, and Sunday's no good, as I already had other plans. I explained I wouldn't be paying for these cupcakes as they were inedible and ruined by her dog. We agreed payment upon receiving the goods, and since I never received them, I wouldn't be paying. She said that I should still pay, as she had to buy ingredients for the cakes, and the cost of eggs has gone up, meaning she would be out of pocket. I said if she had control of her dog, then they wouldn't have been dropped, and I'm sorry, but again, I wouldn't be paying. I got in my car and left without the cupcakes. I still had guests attend on Saturday. I announced the gender in person rather than with some cupcakes, but it was still nice spending time with friends and family. My family were all happy, but my sister-in-law said I should have still paid for the cupcakes as she accepted it was her fault and offered to remake them for me. I personally don't think I should have had to pay for them, but now I'm feeling slightly guilty as I understand it's a small business and a loss of profit would affect her a lot harder than a larger business. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Why on earth would you need to pay for something you didn't receive? I know it would be nice to help out Claire a little bit if you guys were friends, but if this is just some lady, then no. Not the jerk. She's a business owner. She needs to act professional. Having a wild, uncontrollable dog jumping all over your customers and knocking your product out of their hands as they're trying to pick it up is not acting like a professional. This has nothing to do with the cost of eggs. She knows her dog doesn't behave and therefore should crate it or lock it in another room when she's meeting customers. No way should you pay a dime for those cupcakes you couldn't use. If she could have remade them for you that day and delivered them to your house, sure, but you had no use for them a week later. Her fault, so she eats the cost. You're not the jerk in this situation, but baby gender reveals are endlessly useless and stupid. Just have a baby shower. Why do you care so much about other people's decisions if they have no effect on you? If people want to have gender reveal parties, then there's nothing wrong with gender reveal parties, and you shouldn't be demanding other people adopt your lifestyle. Not the jerk, and I'm still trying to figure out why this gender reveal garbage is necessary. No one really cares except the mom, dad, and maybe the grandparents. Maybe. You're the jerk. Just because your baby is born looking a certain way does not mean you will know their gender. It's 2023, and you people still don't realize this. It honestly just makes me sad that you think you can decide whether they will be male or female. It's not up to you, and it never was. You remind me so much of my parents. Don't be surprised when they grow up and go no contact with you. My wife keeps pressuring me to copy stuff that she sees on TikTok. I'm 29, male. My wife, who's 28, and I have been together for about 10 years, married for 2. And while not the most affectionate person in public, I am quite affectionate at home when it's just us. Lots of hugs and kisses, you name it. Both our love languages is quality time and physical touch, courtesy of her research. In the past few months, she's joined the TikTok Reels and wants to copy things she sees people do and ask their significant other in Reels or in movies, like when guys lift your chin or when a girl asks something to her spouse or boyfriend. So we'll be eating dinner and I'll be on my phone or working on my laptop, and there will be something in a video she sends me or on a show or movie we're watching, and she'll comment on it as it relates to us or want me to do something to her. So this morning she was watching a reel in bed, and it was a man running his hand through his partner's hair. She asked me to do it, and I said no. I might have been a little frustrated because I was running late for work and asked her, "Why are you acting like this? We're not in a movie. Do I ask you to do this kind of silly stuff?" I could tell it made her upset and she didn't press it again, and I didn't think anything of it until later when she wasn't texting me like she usually does during the day. I text her asking her what she wants for dinner, and she says she doesn't care. Then she says that she still heard about this morning about how I was a jerk to her and invalidated how she felt. Am I the jerk for telling her that this isn't a movie and asking her why she was behaving like this? We hug and kiss all the time, so I feel like she's copying stuff just to get a reaction from me. Edit. Bought my wife a cupcake and her favorite tea and went home after work. She arrived half an hour after me and pouted at me when she saw my peace offerings. We hugged and I apologized for being a jerk this morning. She apologized for making me feel uncomfortable. I asked her if she wanted me to do things like that to her, and she said sometimes, but she admitted that she sometimes missed the butterflies when we first dated. Surprise, I didn't connect the dots that one of our friends just got into a new relationship and has been over the moon about all their cute moments. So I asked her to tell me all of the TikTok things she's watched that she likes, and she shyly showed me all of the ones she bookmarked. So yeah, gonna make the lady happy and sprinkle her weeks with some, and we'll take into account how to keep our life spicy. I love her, and for all you folks trying to hit on her, she's taken. Get out of here. Thanks to all the folks who were kind enough to explain my mistakes and TikTok stuff to me, the good and the bad. She's asking you to show her love, dude. Who cares where she's getting the ideas? Why aren't you interested in listening to what your wife wants from you? You're the jerk. Your wife is telling you how you can delight her, and you're getting grumpy about it? You're the jerk. You're the jerk. She knows she isn't in a movie, she just wants affection. If it made you uncomfortable to do any of her suggestions, that would be a different story. But is it really too much to ask you to tilt her chin up and kiss her? Or do the wall thing? It would make her happy. Why not do it? It might be a little silly, but isn't that what relationships are for? Who else is she supposed to go to for recreating cute stuff she sees in movies? It just seems like so little effort on your part that would make her very happy. Not the jerk. Look, bud, as a man, you shouldn't be allowing that TikTok crap in your house in the first place. It gives everyone unrealistic expectations and turns them delusional, feeling as if their own life and relationships are inadequate. Social media messes people up and causes them to have totally unrealistic expectations. Imagine if you saw the women on TikTok doing God knows what and asked your wife to do it too. Do you think all of these losers would be cheering you on and saying she's in the wrong for not doing what the TikTokers do? I swear, most of the posts on this subreddit make me lose faith in humanity, seeing how lost people are these days. You're not the jerk, but get ready for a divorce. You'll never be able to compete with the stuff she sees on social media, and she'll end up leaving you over it like they always do. Why can't we afford to go to Paris? Why can't you buy me a new BMW? Why don't you look like Fabio? Problem is, they can't love us unconditionally the way that we love them. It's just part of being a guy these days, mostly due to the masses being brainwashed by social media. Back when I was in high school and college in the 70s, you'd have a hard time finding a guy who didn't have a girlfriend. These days, all 3 of my sons can't get a girlfriend to save their life. It's not that young guys are different now. Heck, my sons look much better than I ever did, and they make more money. The problem is that social media has created unrealistic expectations, hence the higher than ever before number of single mothers out there. The same ones who reject decent guys like my sons who actually want to settle down and start families. Instead, they choose the jerks who will knock them up, bail on them, and move on to the next one. Edit. Call me whatever names you want. It just shows you don't have a real argument and have to resort to name calling. I was married for 30 years until I lost my wife to cancer. She was the most amazing person I ever knew. 100% my fault. I messed around and found out. It's Good Friday, just a few days ago, and I'm the normal closing manager. It was busy. We close at 11, but everyone's getting ready for the holiday and it clears out early. Almost. There's one table left, clearly a first date. I've walked past several times and caught snippets of their conversation. Seem like nice folks. It's 11:15 and I get their server to fill up their water glasses and then he can head home. The closing bartender has already packed up and is heading out too. Just me left, the dishwasher, and the couple. Dishwasher finishes up around midnight, sweeps the line, takes out the trash, and heads home. Just me and them. Nah, I'll leave them be for a while. It's an hour after close, but they're still chatting. I'll go to the office and do the nightly paperwork. I left the doors unlocked, the lights are still set low, the music is still on, but they're completely by themselves. I finish up the paperwork and it's now 1 in the morning. I walk out to lock up and I'm really surprised that they're still there. I figured somebody would go to the bathroom and notice that absolutely nobody in this 55-table establishment was in the building with them. Oh well, I'm off Saturday. Let's see what happens. I've got Reddit I need to catch up on. At 1:55, I decide that's enough. I walk up to the table with my keys in my hand, and before I can say anything, the guy asks me if he can get another drink from the bar. I stammer for a second, completely off guard. Before I can collect myself, the guy says he forgot to order some to-go food and needs to put in an order. So I laughed. Didn't really know what else to do. Hey lady, I shouldn't have laughed at your date. I'm sorry, but I laughed at him. I said, I'm sorry my man, but we closed 3 hours ago. There's nobody here but you and me, and I'm about to head home. And he came back with, you haven't been closed for 3 hours? And he scoffed. I honestly didn't think real-life people scoffed. But I said, well, you're kinda right. Looked at the lady and said, we've been closed for 2 hours and 57 minutes. And like I said, I'm about to lock the doors, so that means you gotta come with me. And then I stood at their table with my keys in my hand until they got up, and we all walked outside together. I will always remember a couple I had when I was bartending at this nice steakhouse. We were a little slow, so I let the server go home and took tables. Only people left in the bar. Drinks are almost empty, so I drop the check. Guy, what time do you guys close? Me, 10. Guy, but it's 10:45. Me, yes, I wanted to give you time to finish your drinks. But you can't leave until we do, right? That's right. Oh, good. We'll have another bottle of wine. Luckily in my state, there's a limited amount of time I can serve you after we close to the public, so I use that excuse. But seriously, dude? Would I be the jerk if I asked my husband to stop coming home for lunch? I do in-home daycare, and my husband gets an hour lunch each day from work. He comes home for lunch and watches shows on his phone. The problem is, without fail, he wakes up our daughter or another daycare kid every day. Or prevents them from falling asleep to begin with, and I don't ever get a break. He used to just slam the door open and shut, would stomp around in his steel-toe boots. Daycare is in our unfinished basement/playroom. I've set boundaries about the door and the shoes. Our dogs bark upon his arrival, so we've worked to kennel them when he arrives or letting them out. Sometimes I'm tending to a kid though and can't get the dog situated before he shows up. He tends to forget to text he's on his way also. Currently, he shuts cupboards, drawers, and the microwave door loudly, cracks open a can of pop, etc., just to list a few ways he wakes up our kid. The main issue is he comes home right as nap time starts, and he wakes her up just as she's falling asleep, or 20 minutes after she's fallen asleep, and then she starts screaming and refuses to take a nap. This is an everyday occurrence, not to mention the daycare kids that he wakes up. I feel so burnt out, full of rage and contempt when he does this. Sometimes he works through lunch, and genuinely nobody wakes up or makes a peep. He goes out of town for work almost monthly, and nap times go seamlessly. I've been telling him for months I wish he would pack a lunch and just spend his lunch at work, because it's taking a toll on my mental health to not get a break. Childcare is hard, and my day begins at 6:30 a.m. every single day. If someone doesn't nap, that means I don't get a break, and I work 11 hours straight. He thinks I'm blowing it out of proportion and being dramatic about how often it happens, but it's literally the truth. I've tried to set boundaries, but he watches his shows while he walks around making lunch and doesn't pay attention or realize how loud he is. He often drops things like his utility knife because he doesn't pay attention as well. Would I be the jerk if I straight up told him he can't have lunch here anymore? I've asked him before to pack a lunch at work, or he could eat next door at his parents' house with his mom who works from home. I just don't see the compromise because he wakes them up and I'm left to deal with it, and I don't get a chance to even eat or check my phone some days. Edit to clarify, his lunch doesn't start at a specific time each day. It's whenever he finishes his last job. Our rest time is from 12:30 to 2:30. Most kids don't fall asleep until about 1 though. Edit 2. Husband and I talked last night. I told him if he can come home by 12, there won't be any complaints as long as he prepares his lunch beforehand to eliminate excessive noise getting ingredients, etc. But he decided to start packing a frozen lunch and eating at work. Thank you for all of your help. We've been battling this for 8 months now, and we just add a layer of resentment that we don't need on top of being parents to an almost 2-year-old. Hoping this compromise works better, I appreciate all of you. Would you be the jerk if you told him he can't have lunch at home anymore? No. He sounds very inconsiderate, not the jerk. Not the jerk. Your home is a place of work where you operate a business. His presence there interrupts with your ability to provide your services. I'm sure he wouldn't like it if you showed up at his job during his work time and made a ruckus watching Netflix. I'm sure he wouldn't appreciate it either. You're the jerk. You tried hard to villainize him, but in reality, it sounds like he's just making normal at-home noise in his home. Maybe your place is on the small side for a daycare. You can ask him to try not to wake up the kids, but in my opinion, that's it. You're the jerk. If his presence and the sounds that result from him being in the house are enough to derail this so easily, it's really not his problem but your own. If you're in the business of childcare, then you need to either be on at all times or hire staff to give you a break like any other functioning business. Am I the jerk for going to my brother's bachelor party? I, 28 male, have a girlfriend who's 22, Nyla, and we've been dating for close to a year at this point. We had a great relationship leading up to this point, and now I'm just in shock of the position that we're in. Nyla and I recently found out she was pregnant. It was shocking to say the least because we weren't actively trying, because me and her were under the impression that she will never be able to naturally conceive. She told me that when she was younger, she went through some stuff, and as a result of that, the doctor told her that she would probably never be able to have a kid of her own without medical intervention. So this was somewhat of a miracle baby, and we were both fully prepared to have this baby until she unfortunately lost it. It was really horrible to say the least. She fell into a depression, and I was sad too. 2 weeks later, I had a trip planned for my brother's bachelor's party. This was planned way before we even found out she was pregnant. She told me how she didn't want me to go and that she still needs me, but I wasn't sure what she wanted me to do if I stayed. I told her I'll be back in 3 days, and she seemed fine with that answer because she gave me the go-ahead. The day I was leaving, she asked me, "Are you seriously actually going to go?" And I told her I had to since the ticket and hotel is non-refundable, so I did end up going. The whole trip, I barely heard from her, and I tried calling her, and she just ignored me. I came home from the trip to our apartment, and all of her stuff was gone, and she took my dog and dropped him off over at my parents' house. I went to my mom's house and picked up my dog, and she told me my girlfriend dropped the dog off because she couldn't watch it and she needed space from me. I told my mom what happened, and she told me I was an idiot and a jerk for what I did. I don't believe what I did was wrong by going on this trip she told me I could go on. I tried calling her to sort this out because I love her, and I've just been ignored so far. Am I the jerk? You don't have to be a mind reader to know she didn't want you to go. She told you, you ignored her and told her you were going. When you were leaving, she told you again. You ignored her and went anyway. It's not surprising she left you. You're the jerk. You left to go on a fun trip shortly after she had gone through a physically and emotionally horrible experience. Where, in that sentence, do you feel like you did the right thing? You're the jerk. You're the jerk, especially for not having a more detailed conversation about this. She asked you to stay, and you weren't sure what she wanted you to do if you stayed? How about talk to her about this before you just decide to go? Let's see. Controlling girlfriend gone? Check. Unplanned baby that you never even wanted to have with the controlling girlfriend gone? Check. Got your dog back and had a good time in Vegas celebrating something that was meaningful to you? Check. Sounds to me like you came out on top, bro. Find someone who doesn't bring all that baggage into your life, and never again trust someone who tells you that they can't get pregnant. They are always lying, as we all find out eventually. Can't even tell you how many girlfriends have tried to pull that "I can't get pregnant" crap with me, and next thing you know, guess who's pregnant? They're just trying to trap you, bro. Either that, or trying to get child support. You want to call my manager? Okay, call him. This happened over a year ago at Walmart. For some context, on my days off, I have a blue work shirt I wear wherever I go out that has pins and patches all over it, as sort of a battle vest, if you will. This fact means that more than once I've been mistaken as a Walmart employee, which I normally just brush off, but this dude took it to another level. So I go to Walmart to drop my car off for an oil change. I decide that I'll walk through the store since it was hot out, then across the parking lot to a fast food joint for lunch. As I'm walking down one of the aisles, I hear a grumpy, "Sir," from the other side of the pallet of products. I just sort of ignore it and keep walking. A quick look at me should tell you that I don't work here. But this guy walked around the pallets and gets right in front of me, all the while yelling, "Sir," at me. I stop because he's now right in front of me and pop out one of my earbuds, to which this guy starts to go off on me. "Are you going to help a customer or just ignore me? You shouldn't have your hat or headphones on at work," he yells. I just roll my eyes and say, "That was rude, but no, I will not help you." I then gestured at my lack of Walmart name badge and all the pins and patches on my shirt, trying to imply that I don't work here. "Well, I want to speak to your manager. You shouldn't treat customers like this." I started to pull out and scroll through my contact till I found my manager. Mind you, my manager at the time was a grumpy old man from Tennessee who would take zero crap from anyone. Had this guy called my manager, he'd have had it handed to him. "You want to speak to my manager? Okay, but he's going to tell you the same thing I'm about to tell you. Buzz off. Don't yell at anyone like that." Dude is now getting more angry as I show him my manager's number. "Go ahead, call him. Tell him I didn't help you out. I don't work here and it's my day off. You shouldn't be treating people like this." The guy just mumbled something, then pushed past me and walked away, having never called my manager. The next time I was at work, I told my manager this story and he got a laugh out of it, saying that he would have loved it if that guy had called him. My stepdaughter feels entitled to my lottery winnings. I, 35 female, am engaged to my fiancé, Brian, 37 male. We've been together for 2 years. He has a daughter, Ashley, who's 14, from a previous relationship. I'm currently pregnant with our daughter. I like to play the lottery sometimes, usually just scratch tickets. This time I won $50,000. Of course, I was very excited. I decided to take the money and put it away for my baby's future. I told Brian about the money and that it was being put away for our baby's future. He said we should take some of the money for Ashley since she's going to be graduating high school in a few years. Brian and his ex do have a college fund set up for Ashley, but not enough for all of it. I let him know this money would be used for our child since it was won by me and I'd be the one paying taxes on it since we're not married yet. I let him know once the baby was born, it would go into a trust that no one had access to. Brian and Ashley think I'm being ridiculous since the unborn baby would have more money than her set aside already and that it's unfair. I explained I understood how they felt, but I think I'm doing the right thing. Now my mother-in-law is also pressuring me because Ashley went to her house feeling upset, saying the baby is getting preferred treatment already. Am I the jerk? Edit. I see a lot of people asking how Ashley knows about the money. She walked into the house while we were talking about it and overheard our conversation. We didn't hear her come inside. Ashley then thought this meant we won the money, as in her father and I, since we're engaged. Not the jerk. Get a prenup. Run. Do not marry that man. Ask Brian if his ex will be contributing to your daughter's college fund. Everyone sucks here. You could throw your soon-to-be stepdaughter a few grand. I'm sure it would go a long way for your relationship with her. Your baby isn't here yet, and properly vested, that money is going to grow substantially by the time your unborn needs it. They suck for demanding your money. As someone with a step-parent, my answer entirely depends on if you want Ashley to be your kid when you get married. If you and Ashley are distant and haven't been making an effort to get closer, then it's entirely reasonable to spend all of this money on your next kid. Is there any way you hold off on making any permanent decision about the money, even just for a year or so? Also, I will not suggest you need to give away any money to Ashley now or that it has to be anywhere near 50%. In my personal opinion, everyone sucks here, because while they shouldn't be expecting this money, I also think 12 is an age where it's acceptable to meet a new adult and have them become like a third parent to you. And if you put all of the money towards your next kid, you will end any future close relationship with Ashley. There will be no future where she asks you to go wedding dress shopping with her, be at her graduation, be in the hospital when she gives birth, or where she'll make Instagram posts on Mother's Day about the 2 awesome mothers I have. Do you want to not only marry the man you love, but to marry into his family and make his kid your own? I had to scroll way too far down to see this answer. Ashley is still a kid, and OP is expecting to become an important person in her life. It's fine for her to prioritize her own kid with her own money, especially as her and Brian's finances are still separate, and Ashley still has 2 parents who can help her financially. But setting aside some of the money for Ashley is a signal that OP cares about her. If I were Brian, I'd be concerned if the person I was about to marry was so dismissive of my existing kid's needs. That said, the fact that he, his ex, and his mother are all pressuring OP rather than Brian having a sensitive conversation with OP about it is also a massive red flag. It would be smart and kind for OP to set aside some of the money for Ashley, not in the college fund her parents set up, but maybe in a long-term savings account that OP has access to. That way she doesn't lose control of the money and can take it back if OP and Brian break up, but it's still signaling that she cares about Ashley. Given the way this conversation has gone though, I don't think this relationship is going to last. Financial advice and parenting advice, the 2 things you should definitely not be asking these kids on Reddit about. Neighbors turn their house into a very loud public church service every Sunday, and their son is a creep. So we just had new neighbors move into the house next to ours, and they've been extremely annoying. Firstly, they convert their front garage and driveway into a church every Sunday. They line up chairs and invite people over and preach loudly on a podium. It literally lasts all day with catering in the works. When they're not doing this, they're loudly practicing their preach sermons in the garage throughout the week. Look, I have no issues with religious folk in general, but it's just so loud and annoying to be honest. Like, can't they just go to a normal church instead of converting their house into one? Is this even legal to do so? Why subject your neighbors to this? Second, the family has a son, probably in his 20s, who harasses both me, female 25, and my older sister. He stares at us very creepily and stops us literally every time he sees us outside. He asks us really weird questions, trying to hit on us, I guess. He once chased my car as I was pulling out of the driveway to ask me what day it was. Recently, as I pulled up into the driveway, he stood behind my car on my property, staring at me and literally waiting for me to get out so he could speak to me. I was stuck in my car for literally 5 to 10 minutes to wait for him to leave, and he waited the whole time. I just got out, made eye contact with him while ignoring what he said, and stormed inside. Like, it's really getting in the way of my life. Now, I usually run from my car to my front door and the other way around so as to not be spoken to or stared at creepily. What really set me off recently was that I caught him staring at me through my window from a distance. Now I have to keep my curtains and blinds closed permanently, which is not the greatest thing for my mental health. This entire situation is making my anxiety spike so high, I really shouldn't feel unsafe in my own property. Other than all of this, there haven't been any other confrontations or issues with the family in general. It seems like they're really extroverted and have made attempts to get to know us, but I'm afraid if I accuse their son of this stuff, they'll deny it since they're children of God, or whatever religious folks say, or retaliate. I've daydreamed of blasting music from my car during their sermon, but I don't want to start drama. Any thoughts or advice? Set up cameras to catch anything just in case. They're fairly cheap, and you should document the creepiness in case it's needed for later. Call the city or the cops about the Sunday thing. I'm sure they are not zoned for church services, so it is a legitimate complaint. Karen promotes her MLM at my wedding. I, 29 female, married my wife in October last year. Best day of my life. My sister, who's 32, Bianca, has been in an MLM for almost 3 years. She has seriously become another person since she started her business. We share some group chats, but there's not a day that goes by that she doesn't send out catalogs, promotions, and walls of text about how lucrative the opportunity is. About the topic. It was the beginning of the wedding reception. My wife and I are talking to some of our guests when our wedding planner frantically approaches us and tells us that there's a guest handing out MLM business cards to arriving guests. Turned out it was Bianca. I asked her to stop, and she did, except she spent the whole night trying to talk people into the business. In the grand scheme of things, what Bianca did was insignificant because my wife and I were very happy that day and there were no major problems. But I still get angry when I think about how uncomfortable it must have been for the guests who were subjected to her presentation. Fortunately, they graciously accepted our apologies. Every time my wedding is mentioned, someone is sure to mention my crazy sister who is promoting her MLM. So incredibly embarrassing. Bianca and I haven't had a lot of contact since then. Yesterday, my mom called me, and after a bit of catching up, she told me my sister's business hasn't been doing very well, and she's been struggling to meet her monthly quotas, so now she's behind on rent and needs money. Bianca asked my mom for money, and she in turn asked me to help her. I said absolutely not. She embarrassed me at my wedding. She didn't even apologize, and I was absolutely sure she was going to use the money I gave her to get into another MLM now that this one was no longer working for her. My mom said that I'm cruel and rude. She said that she did not raise me to betray my family. I told her that she's just feeding my sister's fantasy world and making her believe that at some point she's going to be successful with her MLM. Am I the jerk? We're not on speaking terms right now. Not the jerk. Your sister's business isn't failing. She's just not able to afford to continue being a customer in the pyramid scheme. The sooner she hits rock bottom, the sooner she'll learn she was taken advantage of, and people helping her, slowing her fall with money, will only be brought down with her. Not the jerk. MLMs are legalized scams. I made more money trading during a stock market crash in a month than my sister who festered in one such scam for years. Let your mom know that your sister's MLM is just a money drainer. Not the jerk. She doesn't have a business. She has a spot at the bottom of the pyramid. What she did or didn't do at your wedding is actually irrelevant when it comes to whether or not you should give her money so she can sink it into this or another MLM so she can further fund the dreams of her uplines. If your mom wants to help her, she should help her get out. You're the jerk. I always laugh at how many of you bash MLMs. I was in a nutrition-based MLM for a few years back in college, and I made around $60K a year from it. How did I do this? By simply doing what I was trained to do, selling product and recruiting new members to join the company, who then had the same opportunity I had. It sure beat flipping burgers, but I had to put in the work. I was nowhere near the top of the pyramid, as you call it, but I still made good money and learned valuable skills in sales and networking that helped me land my current career. MLMs are what you make of them, and you get out what you put in. The problem with most of you here on Reddit is that you want to be handed everything for free without working for it. You are the same ones who get a degree in liberal arts, then get mad when nobody wants to hire you and you refuse to pay your college debt. Then the icing on the cake is you expecting your parents to pay for the ridiculous degrees you get. Reddit is like an instruction manual on how to end up sad, lonely, miserable, confused, low IQ, depressed, and very unsuccessful in life. Yowza, what's wrong with this guy? It's almost like he thinks most of the people on Reddit live in their mummy's basements and don't have any real-life experience. Oh, you're wrong for that one, Karen. Am I the jerk for using my daughter's college fund to keep our dream house? I, 50 female, lost my husband 4 years ago. I also have a 16-year-old daughter. My late husband left me everything and told me to trust his lawyer. My husband had worked for 20 years as a doctor and did some minor investing, so I inherited over 7 figures. A year later, I decided to list our home of 12 years and received an offer too good to refuse. With the inheritance, as well as the influx of cash from selling the house, I decided to move my daughter and I to Malibu because we always dreamed of a home next to the beach, but my husband was exceptionally tight-fisted and called homes there money pits. We found a beautiful home by the sea. I never personally handled anything regarding buying a home before, so I did not anticipate all of the extra costs beyond the sticker price. But my daughter was so excited, so I decided to go for it. My late husband's lawyer was furious at my decision, so I decided to stop taking his calls. I ended up signing with a money manager who said we'd be passively earning 90% of what surgeons earned per year. But the money manager ended up tanking a lot of our investments. I took the dwindling money out and made my own investments, which made it worse. And long story short, because of all of that, I only have around $35,000 available to me now, not to mention our debts. With the amount available to me, I'm looking at only being able to pay 1 month of a mortgage/upkeep, and then I'm basically out of my luck until my business gets clients. However, the place where we do have a significant amount of money is the fund my husband started for our daughter. With the money there, I could prevent our credit cards from being shut down and not have to worry about the mortgage for many more months. So I ended up liquidating my daughter's college fund. I told her about it today, and she was furious and said she can't believe all of her dad's work is gone. She also said she won't be supporting me for retirement. Am I the jerk for trying to fix my mistakes and trying to keep our house? You're the jerk. You decided not to listen to the lawyer, you decided to move to an extremely expensive place, and you decided to trust somebody's shady advice. Now you're taking away from your daughter's chances of being able to go to college loan-free. That money is not yours. You should be ashamed of yourself. You're the jerk. You made an extremely poor financial decision and disregarded those around you who are offering you more sound financial advice. Having a home near the beach doesn't mean you need to move to Malibu, but I digress. You are absolutely the jerk here. You robbed your daughter of a chance to start her life off comfortably and took money that was never intended for you. Sell this godforsaken money pit of a home, get somewhere you can actually afford, and take a class in personal finance management. You're the jerk and also fabulously incompetent with money. You will not keep the dream house. You lack ability to earn enough money or to manage what you have. Raiding her college fund will only delay the inevitable. Sell the beachfront house and move somewhere that you can afford. Also, call the lawyer back, tell them that you were wrong and made bad choices. Now you learned and are asking for his advice on how to fix things. Brother lied to pregnant wife about owning my house. So I, 27 male, inherited my childhood 3-bedroom home after my mother passed 5 years ago, along with a good chunk of cash. I live in that home right now. Not to brag, but it's a beautiful home. Now I have a half-brother who we will call Blake, 26 male. We share the same father. He's also passed on. Blake is a deadbeat. He can't keep a job, jumps from relationship to relationship, makes excuses and blames everyone else for all of his problems. And he thinks the world owes him everything. Just not really a good guy. But with my parents gone, he's the only family I have left, so I try to work around it. He's been living with me for a year and a half now after getting kicked out of his own apartment for not paying rent. He went and got his newest girlfriend, who's 24, knocked up and decided that meant they needed to get married right away. They got married at our local courthouse. Now I agreed to have her move in too. She's carrying my niece or nephew after all. It's been 3 months since they got married and she moved in. And she's been rude, demanding, and just outright the worst the whole time. Originally, I chalked it up to being pregnant. But then, one day she comes up to me and tells me that I have to move out. I'm confused and ask what she's talking about. She goes on about how with the baby coming, it's time I leave as they need the space. I tell her she has no right to kick me out of my own house. She comments that since she married my brother, the house was part hers now too, and it's weird to have your husband's brother living with you and your kid. I realized that she thought my brother owned at least part of the house. I explained that she and my brother were in fact living with me, not the other way around, letting her know I fully own it and my brother has no right to it, and neither does she. She goes quiet and runs off. When my brother comes home, they get into a huge fight and she leaves to go to her mother's. My brother's mad at me for telling her the truth. Honestly, up until this point, I thought she knew. Now my brother claims he didn't tell her he owns it. She knew the house was inherited, and since we were brothers, she assumed he owned half and he just never corrected her. My brother is now demanding I give them the house because they need it more with the baby coming. He thinks the least I can do for ruining his relationship with his wife. I told him that wasn't happening and informed him neither of them were welcome in my home. He called me a bunch of names and left. I believe he's staying with a cousin or a friend, I'm not sure. P.S. Some people were worried about them claiming squatters' rights or tenant rights. We're not from America. Squatters' rights is not a thing here. He also is not a tenant as he's never paid rent, so there's no tenant rights either. Also, I have cameras and my locks are being changed today. I'm also having my boyfriend, who is a cop, staying with me for a while. That's insane. Seems like your brother wants to take the house from you. In cases like this, you could never be too safe from family. You offered your home, you allowed them to move in without rent, and now they're trying to take your childhood home. Be safe, OP. Family disputes like these don't always end well. Am I the jerk for not sending my daughter to a different school district? I have 3 kids, Michelle, who's 7, Juliet, who's 6, and Leo, who's 2. Michelle and Juliet are in kindergarten and 1st grade at our local public school. Juliet, however, is very gifted. She came into kindergarten reading chapter books and was doing math at a 2nd grade level. She's obviously doing great academically, but struggles socially at her school for a couple reasons. Firstly, she doesn't understand that other people's brains don't work like hers and tends to get frustrated when people take a bit longer to figure things out. Second, she's just a huge bookworm and would rather spend recess reading instead of playing with the other kids. Then she gets upset that she can't talk about her books with them. I was recently called into a meeting about Juliet with her teacher, the principal of her school, and the superintendent. They basically said that they don't have the resources to support Juliet in her school or any schools in the district, but there is a school 2 towns over specifically for gifted students from 1st to 10th grade. Then for 11th and 12th grade, they have a building at a community college, and she would be taking college courses for high school and college credit. She would have to test into the school, but her school will provide the testing. The school sounds great for her, but it's close to 30 minutes away from her current school. It starts and ends 45 minutes later than her current school, so I'd still be able to get her and Michelle to school on time, but it would eat up the last 2 extra hours of my day. And I don't have that kind of time for school drop-off and pickup, nor do I have the patience to deal with a 2-year-old in the car for 2 hours per day. My husband works in the opposite direction and wouldn't be able to drop her off. We could ask my father-in-law. He sometimes drives the kids around for me, but I don't want him to have to drop off and pick up 2 hours per day. My husband does not agree with me at all. He thinks I should be willing to make the drive for her and insists that I have the time because I'm a stay-at-home mom. I brought up the issue of having Leo spending that much time in the car, but he says that I could just have his parents babysit. I still don't think it's worth the 2 hours per day that I'd have to put in to take her to this school, so I went through with enrolling her in our local public school for next year, and my husband is furious with me for ignoring her social and academic needs. Am I the jerk for not enrolling her in the gifted school because it would take too much time to get her to and from school? You're the jerk for just saying no outright when you do have options to make this work. You could at least have asked the in-laws if they'd be willing to help out, perhaps with a combo of rides and babysitting, and you went ahead and enrolled her in a different school against your husband's wishes. That's messed up. It sounds like you didn't even ask her at all either. This is her education that we're talking about. She might be pretty young, but the entire point is that she is advanced and not being challenged where she is. You're taking away the opportunity for her to actually learn and move forward in an environment that will challenge her. And instead, you want to leave her in one that's most likely going to be boring and annoying, one where she doesn't seem to fit in with her peers either. And all because you don't want to drive a little more? Did you look into any type of transportation? Ask about school buses for her or the other kids. See what other parents might be able to help out, or the in-laws you decided you didn't want to inconvenience without even speaking to. You're the jerk. At least pretend to try before you outright shut down this opportunity. Exactly. My mother ended up arranging for me to carpool with other kids and even teachers who live nearby because we didn't have a car and the school was an hour away. OP isn't trying at all and doesn't care that her kid is going to be so bored she's going to stop paying attention entirely and end up falling behind as a result. So instead of a prodigy, she's going to end up with an angry and disillusioned dropout. You're the jerk. Sorry, but we sacrifice for our kids first and foremost. The "I don't have the patience" comment pushed it over the edge. So the people at your local school are telling you that they cannot support your daughter there, and you're saying, okay, well too bad, I can't be bothered to drive her elsewhere? Being gifted is like having special needs. It's not about her being better than the other kids, it's about needing specialized teaching to thrive at school. Put a gifted kid into a normal class, and they will be bullied and turn into an underachiever. I agree with your husband. You're the jerk. Not the jerk. I'm so surprised by all of these "you're the jerks." I'm wondering how many of them have kids and have to run a household. 10 hours a week, 40 hours a month in a car while maintaining a house? No thanks. It's hard being a mom. That's just going to up her stress level because she'll feel behind on everything. Moms need to make the choices of what is best for the family as a whole, including herself. She said her daughter was having problems socializing. Spending the time taking the daughter to social activities would be a better use of the time. A kid's mental health is just as important as their education. She should consider working on her building strong social skills. No jerks here. You all want what's best for your kids. But your husband doesn't seem to understand the extra labor that entails, especially with a kid. That's a lot of extra time and driving. I feel like some people think that being a stay-at-home mom is a super relaxing job that's flexible and easily changed, but it's not. It's real work and requires energy and labor. If it doesn't work for what you can handle during the day, I think your husband should understand that. Or tell him he's responsible for her getting to and from school as far as finding arrangements to get her there if it's possible. If not, then maybe now isn't the time to do it. Hope you guys can come to an agreement. Best of luck to your family. My wife took down a special anniversary painting I bought her so she could display her sister's basic drawing. My wife of 5 years is a huge fan of Calvin and Hobbes. She's been since she was a teenager. She's 43 now. She and I have had a lot of issues in the past because she, in the past before marriage while we were dating, would always prioritize her family, sisters and parents instead of our relationship. Fast forward, a lot of counseling, time, and miles, and here we are. For our anniversary, I bought her a special one-of-a-kind original painting. It's 1-for-1 that we keep hung in our bedroom. It's special because it's symbolic of each of us waiting for the time and place that we found each other. We found each other later in life, 36 and 31. Fast forward to tonight. I walk upstairs and I see that our painting is laying on one of our dressers and hung in its place is one of her sister's paintings. She apparently painted this piece recently so that it could hang in the bedroom of our 10-month-old. A little bit of context. We have 2 kids, a 2.5-year-old and a 10-month-old. My wife had a previous Calvin and Hobbes painting that her sister did, and it hangs in our 2.5-year-old's room, despite me voicing my disapproval. After confronting my wife, she said that she wanted to treat the boys the same, so her sister painted another pic for our youngest son. Am I the jerk for being mad that she took down our painting to display her sister's? My wife claims that she just wanted to remember her young years for a night, and that she was planning on putting the drawing in our son's room in the morning and putting our painting back up on the wall. I'm furious and told her that again, she's picking her family over me. Out of all of the possible places to hang this piece, she took down a special sentimental piece. What on earth? Am I overreacting? Edit. We're both female. Edit 2. Adding this information based on some feedback in the comments section. Someone asked me why I didn't get along with her family, or something along those lines. This is what I responded. She has so many other paintings her sister has made for her or gifted her scattered throughout the house, including our bedroom. It was just this particular location that was kind of our special altar, and it felt special to me too, because of the verbal feedback she had given in the past. You're the jerk. She was switching around the wall decor, and you're projecting the issues you have with her family onto this. You're the jerk. She wanted to hang it for one night. You are completely overreacting. It doesn't make your painting less special. She's allowed to have sentimental attachment to multiple things. You're the jerk. If it's not about you, OP, then it's automatically not okay. This needs to be cross-posted into a narcissist group. You're mad that her sister did custom paintings for your kids? That just automatically means your wife prioritizes her sister over you? Oof. And if this is just what you wrote from your view, I can only imagine what your wife would actually write. It's just the ocean salt? Okay. This was a long time ago when the beaches in Mexico were still decent and not ruined by hotels. Now, there were 2 beaches my family frequented as my grandmother lived in town. We usually went to the further beach as it turned into basically a giant clam farm when the tide went down. My 50 billion cousins and I would get buckets full, then the grown-ups would cook them the next day. This was my favorite part as I was never fond of the ocean. Thanks, Jaws. One year, in my mother's infinite wisdom, we went to the closer beach because they just didn't feel like driving to the good beach. I, being a typical 14-year-old, started whining to my mom the minute I saw the first of what would be many broken bottles. I whined about the seaweed on the shore that was stinky and right next to our setup. I tried to play in the sand, but people kept throwing things, in one case an entire dog, into my castles. Ultimately, I decided to get into the water where my mom had gone, which is where I made my mistake. After only a few minutes, I began to feel something that hurt on my arm. I saw a bunch of small fish around me, so I dismissed it as the fish swimming by me. I went over close to where my mom was and felt it again, but now it kinda hurt for a bit. I swished my arms around and it stopped, but I didn't see anything besides the tiny fish. I told my mom, I think something's biting me. My mom says, oh, that's just the salt. You're fine. That's why I keep telling you to put lotion on. Your skin is so dry. I've never been hurt by salt before, Mom. Then just ignore it. There's nothing biting you. I know you don't like this beach, but don't ruin it. We're just trying to enjoy the day and no one else is complaining about bites. I go into petty mode and just stare at her as I remain perfectly still. It didn't take long until I felt those bites again, but now I was going to ignore it. So I just stood there for several minutes, just staring at her until the pain turned into burning and the burning turned into agony. Did I panic? Nope. I ever so slowly got closer to my mom until she got startled at how close I was. Then, like frozen molasses in January, I lifted my arm up and said, "Hey, I caught some salt." There on my arm was a bunch of what looked like brown and white striped string, and it was burning the shape of its body into my swelling arm right in front of our eyes. A bunch of baby sea nettles, jellyfish, were stinging me and were pretty much invisible until they were out of the water. My mom swatted my arm and shouted for everyone to get out of the water. It wasn't a stampede of cousins or anything, but everyone looked at me to see what had happened. We spent the next hour wasting our popsicles on my arm as the burning went on for quite some time. Of course, me being me, I had to ask my mom if there was salt in the popsicles. It didn't stop them from going to that beach, but the next time they went, it was the season for the moon jellyfish, which wash up on the shore and completely cover the beach, making it really dangerous for kids and dogs to run around on. The time after that, there were so many people that my cousin almost stepped on a small pile of broken bottles. I never went back. Neighbor trespasses on my property and threatens to post a story about me on Reddit. I'm posting this because I was told I'd end up on Reddit, and my kids told me this is likely what the person meant. So I live in an area that's seeing a lot of new builds. My husband and I have the last large lot on our street, lived here for 20 plus years. Probably 800 people lived here when we bought our house. Now it's over 10,000 people. It's about 1.5 acres. We installed a big play area a few years ago for our nieces, nephews, and eventual grandkids. It's on the opposite side of our lot, pretty far away from the house. There's a path that goes from our second driveway. It's landscaped, and we purchased it from a contractor who is replacing some other park, so I can see how people mistake it as a town park. This happens often that people stop to play, and I usually don't care. But we don't encourage it, as we have 2 giant dogs who will bark at strangers who come in the yard. I put up some blatant signs that say private property and beware of dog. Right now it's still cold here. It's an early Friday morning, and I open the door to let the dogs out. They stay in the yard and ignore anything outside the yard. The dogs start barking, I hear yelling. I run outside. There's a couple and their kid playing on the playground. I call the dogs back and put them in the house. I go over to apologize and let them know it's not a public park. As soon as I get within earshot, the mom starts yelling, "What is wrong with you? We're calling animal control on you. Who lets their dogs just run around a park? Get a fence." I hate confrontation, so I get a bit shaky. I tell her it's not a park, it's my yard. She says, "Get out of here, get away from us." I point to the signs and tell her again that it's not a park, it's our yard and they need to leave. She starts going off about how it's illegal to leave a play area open. It isn't. And it's illegal to let your dogs off leash in this neighborhood. It isn't. There are almost no bylaws here yet. I tell them again to just leave and that they weren't allowed to be on our property. My dogs are in the big window barking, and her husband is screaming that I should train my dogs before they hurt someone. They're bred to guard and detain intruders. Historically, we don't train them as guard dogs. This upset me more than anything because I'm an irrational animal lover. I called the police. When they saw I was on the phone with the cops, they started shouting about me being a Karen and started getting in their car. Their poor kid was crying, and the woman said, "Watch what happens when you end up on Reddit and we tell people where you live." So here you go, Reddit. My kids checked and didn't find anything about it here, so I'll post it first, and I hope she does post something. I'm sorry my dog scared them, but the screaming and threatening was so over the top and honestly deranged. My kids want me to end this by asking if I'm the jerk because I'm old and I want people to get off my lawn. Everyone is saying install a fence, but that would cost $15,000. I've just contacted a company about getting a gate for our second driveway. Also, where we live, you can't sue someone if they're trespassing on your private property. Suing people isn't something people can easily do here, and usually it's not for any big settlement. Before you comment about attractive nuisance law, it doesn't exist here. I don't want to say where I am, but it isn't the US or anywhere close. Not the jerk. If it's your property, it's your property. That woman was obnoxious, and it's her fault that her kid was crying. I would install a privacy fence and lock it. OP. I would love to install a fence, but it would cost upwards of $15,000. I think after this, we'll at least get a gate for the second driveway. It doesn't have to be a pretty fence. You could do the equivalent of a deer fence for a couple of hundred. A bunch of metal fencing poles you simply hammer into the ground, and a roll of wire garden or deer fencing you unroll and tie to the metal poles. Then you can put signs on the fencing. Private property, not a public park. Am I the jerk for throwing out my husband's dinner after he went to eat at his mom's house? My mother-in-law calls every night to ask what we're having for dinner. Then she brags about what she's cooking to make me look bad, especially if we're getting takeout. I used to care, but not anymore. But my husband would ask me to make dinner only for him to go eat the dinner his mom makes at her home, which is 10 minutes away, and using the "that's my favorite meal" excuse. Yesterday, I wanted to surprise him by cooking one of his favorite meals, and although I was busy, I took time off work to cook. I even went grocery shopping to get what I needed. Later, as I was setting the table, his mom called. I told him he didn't have to answer, but he did. Like usual, she asked what we were having, but acted surprised that I cooked this meal. She then went on to tell him that she cooked X meal and told him to come over. He said okay, which shocked me. I said, "Seriously?" as he started dressing up, getting ready to leave. He told me, no offense, but this meal that his mom cooked was even more of a favorite one than the one I cooked, and grabbed his keys and he left. I felt awful. I took his plate and threw it out, then ate my portion. As I was about to put the plate in the dishwasher, he got home looking angry, saying his mom lied about cooking that favorite meal and used it as an excuse to force him to eat dinner with her. I was shocked, but he sat down telling me to go ahead and reheat dinner. I told him no dinner after he abandoned it. I threw it out. He said, "What?" And I told him he disrespected my time and effort and chose to go eat with his mom instead. He began yelling at me, asking if I really did that, then called me petty and horrible, then went upstairs saying what I did was 100 times worse than what his mom did. I definitely feel like I let my anger and frustration get the best of me, but it really felt unbearable having to live like this for so long. By the way, I'm 26 and he's 28. ETA, to make one thing clear, and that's the fact that my husband only does this when it comes to food. He lived with his mom, attended community college, and loved and still loves her food and is used to it. She gave me recipes to make, and I try to do that, but he keeps switching homes just to eat what he feels like. Not the jerk. Your husband can either commit to eating at home with you, tell you well before dinner that he's eating with his mom, or he can make his own meals. Until he starts regularly making a choice to be home or go with enough time for you to plan and prep your cooking, cook enough for only you. He's on his own. ETA. I wasn't going to say because I feel it's obvious, but I can't help myself. This is much larger of an issue than dinner time. There's a profound lack of respect in your relationship. Husband needs to snip the apron strings at the very least, but really needs to spend some serious time thinking about what a marriage and partnership actually means. Not the jerk, stop cooking for him. Tell him how you felt when you made the effort to prepare a nice meal and he decided to eat at mom's. If he continues to do it, you won't cool. I also suggest a compromise. Pick 2 nights a week that he eats with his mom. If she calls on other nights at the last minute, he can gracefully decline. "Sorry, my wife has dinner taken care of. I'll see you on Thursday." If she particularly wants to have him there for a certain holiday or anniversary, she should ask well before that day arrives. You should consider asking her doctor to evaluate her for dementia because her behavior is weird. My aunt passed of Alzheimer's last week, but she did something similar. She would call and lie to get attention. "I haven't seen anyone all day. There's no food in the house." None of this was true. She lived in a mobile home next to her daughter. Her 16-year-old grandkids stayed over every night in case she needed assistance at night. The family brought her food regularly. She had meals on wheels for lunch, and her daughter made breakfast every morning and sent dinner. She was surrounded by people who cared about her, but if she was left alone for 10 minutes, she whipped out her phone and started making these crisis calls. By the time we arrived, she forgot she had called. Your mother-in-law should be evaluated for a neurological or mental illness. Her behavior may not be able to be changed, but there are treatments available. Karen makes a fuss over my plane seat, then insists that I pay for her to move. So this happened back in January of 2018, so my memory may be a bit fuzzy. So I'm a 23-year-old man who usually visits my parents and siblings for Christmas and New Year's because that's the only time I can see them. So I'm in the airport waiting to board my flight as I see a woman getting angry because her kids were tired and wanted to get on the plane. I think nothing of it and hope she's not sat near me. Note, she was at my gate. As I was approaching my seat, an aisle seat in business class, because I knew it would be smarter than asking people to stand up so I can get to the bathroom. When I get to my seat, I see one mother and two kids, one in my seat. I tell the mother that's my seat. She's visibly upset at that statement and snaps back, "No, it's not, jerk." Me, not wanting to have a fight on the plane, I grab the attention of the flight attendant and I show her my boarding pass, so the flight attendant asks her to move from my seat politely. And being asked to move set off the Karen in a raised voice. "This is my seat. I paid for it, so buzz off." The flight attendant, still being polite, asks to see the boarding passes to check the seats. The entitled mother pulls two out for the seats next to mine. The flight attendant, slightly less kind, says, "Ma'am, these are only two boarding passes. Where's the third one?" The mother, thinking she's smart, says, "I must have dropped the third one, so I can't give it to you." So this causes me to butt into the conversation and say that I have the boarding pass for that seat because it's my seat. You should have seen the look on her face, because she then shouts out, "Give me my boarding pass, you jerk." I'm confused why she's so delusional at this point, because it's obviously my ticket since I bought it. The next part was back and forth arguing, which I can barely remember, but from what I do remember, it was the flight attendant saying that I clearly paid for this seat as it had my name on the boarding pass, and her arguing for a few more minutes before stopping grinning, and she said, "Well, if you want me to move so bad, how about you pay to upgrade me and my kids to first class?" I responded by saying, "Miss, I only have a business class seat because I do a trip like this once a year, so I tend to be comfortable during a flight, and I don't have the funds for 3 first-class tickets." The flight attendant then says to the Karen, "Either you or one of your kids will have to move, or else we will have to remove you from the flight." Then, without holding back, she screeches, "If I leave, he's going to hurt them." Me and the flight attendant are physically taken aback by hearing this. After that, I stopped trying to be nice and responded, "Get out of my seat, and never make those claims again, you self-centered jerk." The flight attendant tries to calm me down and calls for security. In the end, the Karen and her kids were escorted off the plane, and I got a row to myself. Karen refuses to adopt and will only do IVF. I'm 19, female. My oldest sister, who's 30, has been struggling with infertility for the past 3 years since they started trying for a baby. This Easter, she and her husband made the announcement that they're going to be pursuing IVF and will start a GoFundMe for it. They looked at our parents expectantly and made it quite clear they expect them to front a lot of the cost. We are far from wealthy, and my parents work and save every penny from their labor jobs. I've been working ever since I was 16 to help support the household too, and to save money to move out. Everyone congratulated them on the decision and wished them luck. But when I got a chance, I told them they were being selfish for spending money the family doesn't have just to have a biological kid, especially since there are so many kids out there available for adoption. For context, I was adopted into my family at a young age, so I'm probably very biased about this topic. I think IVF in general is a selfish thing to do, and the fact they can't even pay for it themselves is the cherry on top. Now my sister won't speak to me, and my family members, except one sister, are calling me a jerk for saying that. My one sister says she understands where I'm coming from. Am I the jerk? Edit. Upon further evaluation after reading some comments, I've come to understand my own feelings a bit more. I believe the majority of my hang-up is about IVF itself, not necessarily how my parents choose to spend their money. They are, and have always been, the most generous, kind-hearted people I know, and I wouldn't want that to change about them, and they can use their money however they want to. They wouldn't have taken me in if they weren't the kind of people they are. While I currently morally believe it to be better to adopt rather than spend valuable financial and scientific resources for biological kids, I now see that expressing this opinion was very jerk behavior, and giving any sort of input into this from a moral high horse was really immature and inappropriate of me. Even if I believe it myself and am planning to adopt eventually too, I definitely do not believe in forcing my belief on others, and I definitely do not personally know the struggles of infertility as I'm still in the please don't be pregnant phase of my life. I will try to be less judgmental in the future and apologize to my sister, and I hope she can forgive me for my outburst. There's a lot of confusing emotions that got brought up with her announcement that had nothing to do with her and a lot to do with me. Therapy was suggested a lot. Maybe I will look into it once I have a real job. I didn't think I had any pent-up emotions or issues since my case was easy. My biological parents passed when I was 2, and their friends, aka my godparents, now parents, took me in. I don't even remember my biological parents, so I don't think there can be any issues. I'm not very well versed in the adoption and foster system and figured I would look more into it when it was that time for me, but now is as good a time as any. Thanks for the feedback. Not the jerk. I think you're wrong in your logic, but that doesn't make you a jerk, and I could be wrong in my assessment. I don't think they're selfish for wanting to do IVF instead of adopting. Adopting isn't for everyone, and some people want to have a biological kid if they can. That preference isn't wrong, it's just their preference. However, your older sister is selfish for expecting the family to pay for it, especially when they don't really have the means. Also, if your sister is in a position to afford IVF procedure on her own, is she really in a good financial position to be having a kid? I'm not so sure. Everyone sucks here. It is a truly important lesson that you should never comment on someone's desire to have or not have kids and how they might go about doing that. It is incredibly personal. Infertility is heartbreaking for many. You were absolutely a jerk for what you said. And yes, your history has biased you. It's fine to advocate for adoption. You don't have to call someone selfish while you're doing that. Your sister is a jerk because how you choose to have kids should not become someone else's financial burden. But that's still not your conversation to have. That's your parents' call. You're the jerk. You overstepped. Adoption is great, but it's not for everyone. All sorts of things get factored into that decision. It's not simply about people wanting their kids to be biologically related. Also, adoption is not a no-cost or even low-cost option. Them choosing IVF over adoption is not a personal attack on you. How they decide to grow their family is up to them, even if they're asking others to help with the costs. Whether your parents can or want to contribute financially is up to them. Am I the jerk for asking my brother to pay $30,000 for my engagement ring? Sweet home Alabama. Let's not jump to conclusions, Karen. Let's just read the story. I hosted a family dinner over the weekend. My brother brought my nephews, who are 4 and 8, over as well. I used to wear my engagement ring all the time, but lately I keep it in my walk-in closet and mainly wear it for special occasions. While I was cleaning up the dinner table, my nephews went to go play while the adults were still in the outdoor patio and outdoor kitchen area. My brother was not supervising his kids. During this time, my nephews went into the master bedroom without anyone knowing and started playing with everything, including my engagement ring. When we came to look for them, they panicked because they knew they weren't supposed to be upstairs, ran into the master bathroom, and flushed my ring. We called a plumber in case it was somehow in the U-trap of the toilet and not actually gone. But nope, unfortunately, it was gone for good. We still had the original receipt, so I called my brother. I emailed him a scanned copy as proof of the cost and asked him to reimburse me for the ring my nephew flushed. Immediately, he started calling me a jerk because we were family and he was just a kid. He has refused to pay the cost of my ring. I told him I'll be taking him to court for this, and now my entire family is blowing up my phone, saying family shouldn't sue each other and to just let it go. Edit. No, the ring was not insured. I found out the day after my nephew flushed it. My husband says he forgot and in the end never actually insured it. Edit 2. My brother says he does not have the money to repay even $100 per month and has refused any kind of repayment plan. He said I live in a nice enough house, and if I want a replacement, I should just sell my car. Edit 3. My brother, to this day, has not truly apologized. He said kids will do what is normal for kids, and they shouldn't be held responsible for a ring. They were supposed to supervise their kids outdoors with the rest of the family while I was busy cleaning up. Edit 4. I don't believe for a second my brother and his wife cannot pay for the cost of my engagement ring. They don't make anything near my husband, but they have a combined income of around $250,000. They don't pay rent or anything because my parents gifted them their old house, valued at $3.5 million in Toronto, back when I bought my parents a new home years ago. There's no mortgage on the home my brother lives in. The only things my brother and his wife would have to pay is the cost of raising their kids, normal bills, and food. I feel so distraught because my ring holds great sentimental value. I've already been speaking with my husband's family lawyer, but at this point, I'm ready to hire a private investigator to find out if they really don't have the money. Not the jerk. His circus, his monkeys. He wasn't watching them, that's on him. 100% he should replace your ring. As for all the family who are blowing up at you, it's easy, when it didn't happen to them, to preach forgiveness. Ignore them. Also, 8 and 4 are more than old enough to know better. My 3-year-old knows not to touch someone else's things in their home without asking. Choices have consequences, and sometimes those consequences are expensive. Sorry this happened to you. You didn't insure a $30,000 ring? For those of you who say the insurance isn't the point, of course it's the point. The point of this whole thing is the sheer amount of money involved. Crap happens all the time. Kids get into things, dogs eat things, partners lose things. Anything that you value is on you to insure or protect. You're the jerk for walking around with a $30,000 liability the size of a marble and then pointing fingers at whoever touched it last before it disappeared. Not the jerk. Your family is right. Family shouldn't sue each other because it should be repaid without courts. Literally 90% of people can't afford a random $30,000 bill, but they can absolutely afford to repay it back over time. Her ring is gone, and it's gone through no fault of her own. She is owed restitution. Am I the jerk for canceling on family vacation after my newly widowed mom decided to bring her new boyfriend? My dad lost his 1.5-year battle with cancer 1 year ago, April of 2022, at only 62 years old. He and my mom were married for 31 years. The few months before my dad got sick, he and my mom were not on great terms and were contemplating divorce. However, through my dad's diagnosis and extreme ups and downs of treatment, they came together, squashed some of their issues, and my mom was there to care for my dad every step of the way. I miss him every day. Me and my mom had always been pretty close, but since my dad passed, I feel like I'm seeing and talking to her less and less these days, and it makes me sad. In August of 2022, 4 months after my dad passed, my mom started seeing someone. She'd call him her friend, slip in mentions of him in conversation, but I personally wanted nothing to do with him. Still don't. I thought it was too soon, and I told her so. Everyone grieves differently, and dating after losing a spouse is hard, but conversations I've attempted with this guy and the chemistry between them have been super awkward in my opinion. I feel like she's disregarding any feelings or pushback that's me, my sister, or extended family have about this relationship. Large extended family, all very close-knit. She has now started bringing him to events and parties, and there's an awkward vibe when he's around. Nobody wants to say it out loud. This past week, he showed up unexpectedly at our family Easter party at my parents' house. My mom knew he was coming and did not mention to anyone. Following tradition, we stood in prayer before we ate dinner, and my uncle prayed out loud for those who we have lost, and I felt so awkward that my mom's boyfriend was there, holding hands with my family as we talked about my dad, in my dad's house, almost only a year to the day that he passed. We're now booking flights for a large family vacation in June. Condo has already been booked for months, and my mom casually mentioned at Easter that she's bringing her boyfriend. I didn't hear this at the time and found out later from a cousin. I immediately called and told her my feelings about him going. I don't want him to, and she completely changed the subject and did not acknowledge what I told her at all. Not to mention, we had decided to leave a day early to save money on flights, but now that her boyfriend is going, it will actually cost me more because we will no longer be splitting the costs that we originally planned since they will be doing things separately. Money is not the problem though. It's now principle to me. Of the 20 family members that will be on this trip, not one person really wants him to be there except her. He will be staying in the same condo, and we're going to have to tiptoe around this awkward situation for an entire week while we should be relaxing and enjoying family time together. Am I the jerk for wanting to cancel on the family vacation and or stick to my guns about not wanting her boyfriend to go, even though she already booked his flight? You're the jerk. Sounds like your mom put aside the reason she wanted to divorce your dad to be there for him in his time of need and to honor their 31 years together. I'm sure you've read on Reddit how many men abandon their spouses when they get diagnosed with cancer. Your mom stayed until the end for him, even though the marriage was done. She stayed with him through his cancer and helped him. And now what? You're mad that she has a chance at happiness again? How many years of her life does she have to sacrifice before you decide it's okay for her to be happy? 1 to 2 years to nurse him, 1 year to grieve. That's already at least 3 years of sacrifice for an older woman who wanted to be free and have a better life. It doesn't matter what you think of her boyfriend. My own mom is dating someone I don't like, but I'm not going to say anything because he makes her happy. And yes, I'm going on an awkward family trip with them. Be a better kid to your mom. Goodness. You're the jerk. Your parents' marriage was over. If they were together for 31 years and talking divorce, dude, it's been over for a while. She sucked it up because he was dying. It's an awkward vibe because instead of being mature and being happy your mom found someone who makes her happy, You guys are refusing to be open. You're the jerk. Grow up. Your mother and father were already contemplating divorce. She stayed with him through his illness anyway. She didn't move on too quickly or do anything wrong. I'm sorry for your loss, but seriously, your mother deserves to be happy. You're the jerk. You said yourself that they were having marital problems before your dad's illness. Your mother did right by him and cared for him, but the issues were still there, just squashed as you call it. It makes sense that she moved on faster than you because her relationship with him was different than yours. He was your dad, but for her, he was a husband who she was considering divorcing. If this new man treats her well and makes her happy, just be happy for her. Don't you think she deserves to be happy? Not the jerk. I was wondering why everyone is tearing you to shreds. Honestly, my heart goes out to you, and I'd feel the same way if I were in your shoes. Then I saw in the comments that you're actually a male. Then it all made sense. If this was written by a daughter about her father, everyone would be telling her to go no contact with him. Gotta love Reddit. Nothing wrong with your noise? Let's see how you like it when you have a baby. I live in an 80s-style duplex building made of concrete cinder block bricks and moved in here mid-2016. My neighbor has a mirror of my apartment. They are both 2 levels with a gallery staircase in the middle. I love it here so much, but my neighbor, oh my goodness. We actually used to get along all right, and that was mostly because I like to keep the peace. But he loves having every door and window of his home open, and I live in a part of the world that is hot and humid for about 3/4 of the year. We also live right by a busy road. This wouldn't be that much of an issue, but his music and movies have to compete with the outside noise as well as the noise from his fans. He refuses to use his air conditioner. The result, even at low levels, is a booming bass in some of my rooms due to the resonance. It drives me crazy, and this could happen at any time of the day or night. I was losing sleep, and my mind was at wit's end. We finally fell out about a year ago. I had tried asking, begging, pleading, passive aggression. Every avenue had been exhausted by this point. I convinced him to come over to my house and just listen so he can hear for himself what I'm talking about, and thought surely he would realize that he needs to stop, or at least seriously adjust his sound settings. He said there was absolutely nothing wrong, and so I decided to change tack and increase the levels of my own system, much better than his, to roughly where his was. And again, he said there was nothing wrong and that he wasn't going to change anything. I was told that my sound wasn't able to be heard at their place and that I could leave the levels as they were and would just have to live with whatever sound came out of their home. At this point, I also started searching for phrases like narcissist or just a jerk to try to figure him out. He got with this lady he had been talking to, and it's an absurd and toxic relationship, but not my problem, and I figured at least he wasn't playing sound that boomed through my bedroom in the middle of the night. Anyway, cut to a few months ago, I noticed he had some old baby stuff on his patio that looked like it was bought from a garage sale 30 years ago, and then in the following months, I see his girlfriend with a definite baby bump. By now, I bet you can see where this is going. And so by that point, assuming things weren't going to change, I knew they wouldn't. This past month, my neighbor and his girlfriend have welcomed an adorable little screaming baby, which I can't hear from my place at all, thankfully. But apparently, they absolutely can hear sound coming from my place and told me as much when they knocked this week, and I greeted them with a big smile and congratulations. They told me that they're getting no sleep at all and that they're at their wits' end. They asked, begged, and pleaded with me to turn my sound system down, and I reminded my neighbor that my sound wasn't able to be heard from their house, and even if they could hear my sound, then they can just live with it. I might reduce the settings slightly once I know for sure that a lesson has been learned, and I'm well aware that this would fit in Am I the Jerk and Petty Revenge, but I thought I'd give it a go here. Am I the jerk for hiding vegetables in my boyfriend's food? I, 28 female, have been with my boyfriend, who's 36, for a year, and we moved in together about 4 months ago. One of the first things I noticed about my boyfriend was that he never really eats vegetables. He would sometimes eat them if we were out at a restaurant and they came as part of his meal, but he never ate them when I cooked for him. Originally, I thought that maybe my cooking was the problem, so I asked him if he enjoyed my food, and he told me he loves my cooking. On nights I didn't cook for him, he ate exclusively frozen foods and never ate the vegetables in those either. Naturally, he has some health issues, vitamin deficiencies, etc. He had phrased to me as if it were something just genetically unlucky. I believed it for a while because I don't know how that stuff works, but eventually it became clear to me it's because he voluntarily eats a vegetable like once a month. 6 months ago, I started hiding vegetables in my cooking. If I was making pasta, I'd put the vegetables in. I'd usually put in for myself. Just take half out and blend it so that he wouldn't notice the vegetable chunks, and then just tell him I'd scoop the vegetables out of his portion. This happens more often now that we live together because I do all of the cooking. He's been telling me a lot lately. He's been feeling a lot better the past few months and has even had his doctor reduce the dosage of some of his medications, and he hasn't had to take his multivitamin in weeks. I kept my mouth shut because I'm just glad he's feeling better, and it really does me no harm to hide the vegetables in his food. Yesterday, I was making one of our regular pasta meals. It's one that's very easy to hide at least 4 veggies in, and I was about to blend my boyfriend's portion when the blender died mid-blend. I had to serve it all in its vegetable chunky glory. My boyfriend refused to eat the vegetables, but when he tasted the sauce, he said it's weird how it tastes the exact same even though this one has vegetables in it. So I confessed. He screamed at me and called me a controlling jerk and said that it's none of my business if he thinks vegetables don't do anything. I pointed out that he said he felt better. He said his health was none of my business and that I'm a controlling, judgy jerk, and stormed out of our apartment to stay with his sister. His sister texted me to say he's fine, but she agrees with him. My friends agree it's ridiculous that he didn't eat vegetables, but agree that I'm being the jerk. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. This is a grown man 8 years older than you. If he has a problem with your cooking, let him make his own food. He's already coddled by his sister and doesn't and shouldn't need to be coddled by you. Sorry, but he should rightfully go in the reject pile for OP and every other woman. A man who cannot be an adult for himself and eat things that do him good is a self-sabotaging and her-sabotaging jerk unfit for partnership. I don't know why some people act like self-harm is some sort of virtue. It's not. It is stupidity and stubbornness in all of its glory, and this was but one symptom of a much bigger problem. He's unable to adapt and evolve as a human. He's unable to adult himself and learn new things. He is unable to take responsibility for his own health or his cooking. He ate junk and thinks that is somehow as it should be. Anyone dating such a person should save themselves years of heartbreak and move on. And given that he apparently didn't mind the veggies when he didn't notice them, it's pretty clear that it's not even taste or texture he has a problem with. If it was, he could just say, "Oh yeah? Well, it tasted fine, so please keep blending veggies for me." But he insists on not eating them at all for no apparent reason. No, you're not the jerk in any way, and I don't care what anyone says. I admittedly was the same way till my girlfriend kinda got me to start. I felt much better afterwards and just, yeah. Mine is squash. I will straight up fight someone over having to eat that nasty food. If he's gonna be a crybaby about it, he can cook his own food and you can cook yours. That way he can control what he's putting in his body, as another comment said. This guy is crying about eating vegetables that he didn't know he was eating and actually liked how it tastes. What a donut. Not the jerk. What kind of grown man doesn't eat vegetables? Get a new boyfriend. You're the jerk. It's infuriating how hypocritical you all are. I've seen several stories about boyfriends who secretly get their girlfriends to eat certain foods, and you guys completely flip out. But now that it's the girlfriend sneaking things into her boyfriend's food, you all give her a pass and tell her to leave him. I'll never understand how you all became so biased against the men in these stories. If he doesn't want to eat vegetables, guess what? He doesn't have to. He's an adult and gets to make his own decisions. There are plenty of doctors who don't even recommend eating vegetables or fruits. I'm sure you all would discredit them though, because you prefer to follow the food pyramid, the same one that has 90% of you overweight and diabetic and insulin resistant. Am I the jerk for telling my brother's girlfriend her dog is not equal to a human life and to stop talking? I, 27 male, used to think this was something that people would only say online, but I've definitely seen and heard it firsthand bleeding into real life, which is why I'm asking here. Maybe I'm just weird because I'm surprised I even have to ask this. It's not uncommon to see online, Reddit for example, to see people say that they would choose to save their dog over the life of a living person because their dog is their dog while the person is just a stranger. That entire mentality seems warped and incredibly vile. I don't hate dogs and I like playing with them, but I don't understand how one can compare one to that of a person. That was once online, but it seems to be bleeding into real life at times. Yesterday, a family friend was telling my family and my brother's girlfriend, Mary, who's 25, how her son is having major medical issues which could ultimately take his life. and how she and her husband were not dealing with it well at all. And my brother's girlfriend said, "I understand what you're going through. When Kennedy, her dog, needed surgery, I just didn't know how to deal with it, and I was a mess." Everyone got kind of quiet because she was comparing the life of a dog to a 9-year-old kid, and she said it like it was totally normal. The mom was visibly taken back and hurt, and Mary didn't understand why. Mary added Kennedy is like a kid to her, and before she could go on, I just blurted out something like, "Not the same at all. Please stop talking." Mary did stop talking, but it made everything uncomfortable, so everyone called it an evening. My dad asked Mary to leave and told my brother he needed to ensure he and Mary somehow made this right because that was heartless. My mom said she wasn't sure how to end the conversation after that, but my method wasn't it. My brother hasn't said much other than he gets it, but he is still upset with me. Mary is demanding an apology and for me to mend the relationship with my dad. The few people who know about this are torn. Some people are saying Mary wasn't wrong, and me and others do not get to tell her how to feel about her dog, and I invalidated her feelings. Others are saying she should be ashamed. One friend said, "This is a problem only white developed nation people could encounter, and Mary is actually a bad person." I can't believe I actually have to ask this, but they got me. Am I the jerk for any of this? I love my dog and I love my son, but my dog is a dog and my son is a human who will well outlive my dog. I respect people's choices on how they view their animals. Some people can't have kids and view their animals as that, but comparing the surgery of an animal to one of a human is nowhere near the same. The outcomes are vastly different as well as recovery. Were you a bit rude? Perhaps, but not the jerk. You're the jerk. My pets are just as important to me as your kids are. You have no right to downplay the emotional pain that pet owners feel from what we go through. Why do breeders insist that it's impossible for other people to actually love their animals? To be honest, I love my pets more than most breeders love their offspring. I don't constantly complain about my pets the way breeders do. I don't try to pressure family into watching my pets for me the way breeders do. I never developed a drinking problem to cope with the fact that I wish I never got my pets the way breeders do. How dare you try to downplay my pain? It's people like you that spike my depression and anxiety. Reddit used to be a safe space for me, but with stupid people like you, it's now a major trigger. Would I be the jerk if I made my 10-year-old sister use her birthday money to pay me back? I, 24 female, recently moved back in with my parents so I could finish trade school. My little sister, who's 10, and I share a Jack and Jill bathroom. I had been noticing slime and spilled wax all over the countertops and light switch in my side of the bathroom and had talked to my parents about keeping my little sister out of my side of the bathroom. Well, 2 weeks ago I was supposed to go on a date but couldn't find any of my makeup. I asked my sister if she had taken it out of my bathroom and her response was, "I didn't even know you wore makeup." She's a good kid, so I believed her and figured I must have lost my makeup in the move, which upset me because I buy expensive stuff since I don't use it often. I ended up going to the store that day and just replacing the concealer and foundation, $100, since I couldn't afford to replace my whole set. Well, this morning I wake up to find my old concealer and foundation sitting right on top of the new ones I just bought. I asked my mom if she had found it somewhere, and she said she never touched it. It was pretty obvious that it had leaked or something because there was makeup all over the outside of the bottle, and it was way more empty than when I last had it. My mom immediately thinks that my little sister took it and goes into her room to snoop around. The next thing I know, my mom starts tossing the room, and I'm trying to get her to stop when she finally dumps out a drawer with not only my makeup, but a bunch of makeup that my mom had that had gone missing. My sister had taken 2 makeup palettes of mine. One I hadn't even opened yet. Brushes, lipstick, eyeliner, basically everything. On top of that, my mom found open containers of slime and paint that had seeped into the carpet and other crap she had stolen from around the house. All of the makeup she took from my mom and I were destroyed. The palettes were mixed together and cracked. Brushes had paint in them, lipstick mashed, and everything was covered in slime. When me and my parents confronted her, she denied everything, even said that she didn't use any of the makeup when it was an obvious lie. My parents have grounded her for a month, no phone or electronics, and have offered to pay me back, but I don't want them to pay me back. I want her to pay me back. She stole and destroyed nearly $200 of makeup and lied to my face about it. The worst part is I've only been living here for 3 weeks. Her 11th birthday is coming up in 2 months, and I'm wondering if I would be the jerk if I made her use her birthday money to pay me back. I feel like taking her birthday money is cruel, especially because it's the only kind of spending money she gets all year, and my parents have suggested chores. But what chores is she gonna do to pay me back? I do more chores than her, and I pay rent. Edit. My parents are not against her paying me back with her birthday money. They actually suggested it first. They're leaving it up to me to decide how I want to be paid back. My grandparents give her a $200 check every birthday on top of toys and art stuff for extra spending money during the year. It's not really up to you, is it? Her and your parents are legally responsible for damages caused by their kid. Hence, the money is truly their responsibility. How to raise your sister is also their job. If they chose to use her birthday money to pay you back, then fine. It could probably be seen as proper consequences for her actions, but it's not really your place to decide this. The real question is, what's going on with your little sister that she's stealing and lying? She's obviously acting out for some reason. My daughter is demanding I fire her ex because she broke up with him. The boy in question is named Jaden, 22 male. Me, 45 female, and my husband, 46 male, have known Jaden for 15 years since he's the son of one of our friends. My daughter, Tati, 21 female, and him have had the same friend group for a few years now. In college, they befriended this girl named Paige, 21 female. My hubby and I loved Jaden with all of our hearts. Tati is our only kid, and we thought of him as our son. We believed they would get married one day, so I decided to teach him the family business since he was 17 years old, so that he could take care of it one day. Tati is not interested. I hired Paige for a while, but she ended up quitting because she had to take care of her mother because she broke her ankle. A year ago, Tati told us that she and Jaden were expecting, and while we were worried because they were too young, we were happy for them. Sadly, she lost it and ended up very depressed. I saw Jaden doing everything she wanted. As you can imagine, my daughter began to snap easily and started to treat the poor boy badly. We talked to her. We told her it wasn't fair, but she wouldn't listen. She said we didn't understand, nor did Jaden. During a fight, Tati broke up with Jaden. It was pretty common during those days, and he always came back saying sorry, but that time, he didn't. He kept showing up to work. He kept talking to my husband and I, but it seemed that he was done with Tati. And as unfair as it sounds, I don't blame him. Eventually, he started to date Paige, and this, obviously, enraged my daughter. She demanded I no longer leave the business to Jaden because he wouldn't be family anymore. I stupidly said yes because my daughter was grieving and heartbroken. Jaden understood. I thought that was it. Tati never demanded anything else until 2 weeks ago when Jay told us that Paige was expecting. I guess it triggered Tati, so she demanded again that I fire Jaden because he has no business around us anymore. I don't know why, but I declined. It doesn't seem fair. Jaden has proven to me that he's cut out for this. He knows what he's doing. He's a good boss. He's smart and people trust him. So I said no. Tati went to her dad crying, and my husband demanded I fire Jaden ASAP, but I said no again. He said he would fire him himself then, and I said he wasn't allowed because the business belongs to my side of the family and my dad was still alive, so he had the last word. My husband keeps telling me that I'm the jerk for choosing Jaden over Tati, so maybe, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your daughter is trying to make this guy's life horrible. Why? Because she's upset that she was toxic towards him. She's upset because she broke up with him and he didn't come crawling back after dealing with her snapping at him. Sounds like she was mistreating him, by the way. I would be disgusted with my husband for wanting to enable her malicious and downright disturbing behavior. And of course, I would find my daughter's behavior deplorable if she acted this way. She's hurting people because they didn't enable her behavior. She's lashing out over what? Facing the consequences of her own actions? I'm sorry for her loss, but grief is not an excuse to treat other people poorly. Your daughter needs to grow up and, quite frankly, recognize that the world does not revolve around her. She seems to think otherwise. Not the jerk. There's no way you should fire an expectant father just because his ex is throwing a tantrum. Apart from being unethical, that could expose your business to severe legal and social liability. My mom stole $8,000 from me and opened credit cards in my name, plus updates. I haven't talked to my mom for a little over 1 year now, but this is the story of my mom's lies. Growing up, my mom was always in and out of jail for stealing. Last time she was arrested was in 2015. I was 19 at that time. She always said she stole to provide for our family, but we never lived in a stable home. She would just blow money on expensive gifts and tell us we aren't poor, we have this, how many poor kids have this, as we lived from hotel to hotel. Growing up, I became the financially responsible kid. I worked multiple jobs, got good grades, and did community service. I was able to save up $8,500 for college with multiple scholarships. During my hard work in high school, I also helped my mom with bills and paying for whatever she needed help with. When I left for college, she was arrested again and had to be dropped off states away by my aunt for my first day of college. I asked my mom for my college money, and she said she would transfer the money when she got out. When she got out, it all magically disappeared. She blamed my dead grandmother for stealing my money. In 2019, I discovered multiple credit cards and an apartment laid on bills that were opened in my name. I cried to my mom about all these issues, and she comforted me and asked for more money. I gave her more money. I graduated with my BA and went to grad school. I was able to be in grad school for 1 year with my savings before I needed to take Grad Plus loans out. I applied but was denied due to all of the negative items on my credit score. My mom told me to just pay it off. I didn't. I dropped out instead. I was devastated, but I wasn't going to pay for other people's fun ride. I called all the credit companies and got the address for all the credit cards. It was my mom's address. When confronted, she broke down, saying it was my grandmother, and how dare I blame her for this. She demanded an apology and didn't speak to me for a week. My grandmother passed before all of the credit cards were open. I filed a police report against my mother. She doesn't know yet, but when she finds out, I'm sure I will receive the best kind of text message. We stopped talking for another reason. Edit for all the comments. I have not spoken to my mother for a year, almost 2 years now. She's been blocked on everything. The reason we don't talk is on a previous post I made about how happy I am my boyfriend ruined my relationship with her. To the comments asking about why I kept giving her money, it was hard. It was either help with the bills or have no electricity, water, gas, or roof over mine and my brother's head. I didn't want to be homeless again, and I didn't want my brother to suffer either. I felt like I needed to help my family because for so long I had the mentality that blood was thicker than water. I also now know that it isn't my responsibility. I was just young, and I thought I was doing the best I could to provide for my family from the ages of 16 to 23. I'm 26 now. Credit stuff. I've gotten a good amount taken off. Only 2 cards and 1 bill are on my credit score. Thank you for all of your support and kindness. Edit 2. I am a ball of rage. I had recently unfreezed my credit card account to apply for care credit to get an emergency surgery done. Not even 2 months of unfreezing my credit, my mom applied for a new credit card in my name. I'm done. I always had a piece in me that didn't want to press charges or push for it because it was rough times in our lives, and I knew she was struggling to raise us. But now I see no excuse other than she just doesn't want the responsibility of living within her means. It's been 2 to 3 years of no contact. I would like to say forget you to Chase Bank. The card was being opened with them, and when I called to let them know it wasn't me, they told me they will see if they can close the account, but need a police report first. I asked for the address to confirm it was my mom. They kept denying my request for the address. I only got it confirmed after I told the operator if I guessed the darn address, would you just give me a yes or no? He agreed, and it was my mom's address. I'm away for surgery for a while, but when I get back home, I'm going to the police and requesting to speak with a prosecutor. I'm done. I'm hurt and done. I did my best to raise my credit score to where it is now. I did my best to work multiple jobs to help with the bills. I did my best to be her emotional support, no matter how bad she treated me. I feel like this next step will be cutting this one string I left connected to her out of sympathy, and of course, it led to me being taken advantage of again. I hope to give an update on if the courts will be on my side. Edit. I'm sadly states away for this surgery, which is why I'm waiting till the surgery is over and I'm back home recovering. I don't know if I can file this police report in the state I am in, and it still be effective in the state I live in. I know jurisdiction can be a problem. Edit 2. Thank you for the advice. I'll be pressing charges right away. My boyfriend is an attorney, but doesn't work in the public area. I do have friends from my law school days that actually work in our country's prosecutor office, so I may reach out to them for some advice. They just passed the bar and are slowly getting into the routine. I also don't like to bring this up much to passive friends because it's just so embarrassing. My mom and I haven't spoken in almost 2 to 3 years. It feels so long ago, I really don't know the timeline. Questions: why haven't I pushed for charges before, and why do I keep letting this happen? I really don't know if many will understand, but I've been conditioned to fear my mom. From a young age, she would punish me for not acting, speaking, or thinking a certain way. If she thought I had a negative thought about her, I was punished. I had to beg and cry and comfort her that it wasn't true. After it was over, I would have to hold my mom and comfort her through the tears. The fear has also been real, even after cutting contact. It has stopped thankfully, but I've been afraid that if I make this move, it will start again. What do I mean? She threatened to get my boyfriend and friends expelled from law school if they kept associating with me. We had to call the school and have a talk about my mom. She then threatened to report me to the IRS for tax fraud, but I always paid my taxes. She sent messages to my workplace. When I was a kid, I'd be in the back seat as she drove past people's houses whom she hated over and over to see what they were doing. That fear that she could find where I live and do this made my stomach turn. I was afraid to push for these charges in the past because I wanted to leave it behind and continue the peace I was living. She stopped, I removed all those nasty things on my credit, and I was happy. Until now. I know it will never stop. After 4 years of not opening anything in my name, she went back to it. So I'm putting my foot down and taking this step. I understand I should have pushed more earlier. I was scared and naive, but I'm going to stop it today. Last update until I get back home. I called my local police department back home, saying I have an update for the identity theft report I reported in 2021. They transferred me over to the detective office and said I would need to come in to make another report. I told them I'm currently waiting to finish a surgical procedure and will not be back home for a few days. They said it was fine. So at this time, I will not be able to make the report until I get back home. But I'm also happy because they said I can talk to the detective when I come in to file the other report. So I hope to be making a part 4 by the end of next month with some good news. Update 3. Well, it's been a mix of emotions the past few days. My surgery went well and my recovery should be complete by next week. I feel really good. 2. I got cancer. Didn't expect this one. Skin cancer, which is super easy to treat and to prevent if I keep up with the doctor appointments. I got this weird wart removed. Got a call right before I go into surgery saying it was cancer and I would need to come in for some more testing and body check. I would like to thank my mom for having me in tanning beds at 13. She said I was super pale and I believed her. She also didn't want people to think we didn't travel for spring break, so all spring break I would be in a tanning bed to look like we traveled. Wear sunscreen, kids. 3. I got a puppy. 4. I went to the police today and filed a report. Spoke to a detective too. I gave them all of mine and my mother's information. They asked if I would like to press criminal charges, and I said yes. They're going to call the credit card company to pull the report, and if Chase Bank gives them the report without a subpoena, then we will have an easy charge and closing of the case. If Chase Bank wants a subpoena, then it will take longer to close this. I'm super happy I finally did this and to hear that they may actually have charges to press against her. So once I have more of an update, I'll post again, but it looks like I may be a couple of months before we get somewhere. Also, I did talk with my brother. He knows and is aware of the situation. He doesn't seem to care about his credit, but he's also still young. I'm sure he will understand soon and hopefully get his taken care of. Update. Police called to let me know they will be going to see her today or Tuesday to talk about the theft. If she admits to it, then we will have an easy case. I told them on the phone she won't admit to stealing. She would just blame someone else. The detective wanted to know if she had a drug problem. I told him no, she just can't live within her means. If I get a call back that she has been arrested, I will let you know. Update 4. I got a call this morning from the detective. He wanted to hear my side of the story again. I told him my mom's history with theft. I told him I filed once in 2021 and nothing ever happened, how I found this inquiry, and how she did it the moment I unfreezed my credit. He asked what did I want him to do. I told him I would like charges. He asked if he goes to her place, will she admit to this crime? I told him no. When I confronted her about this, she had blamed my grandmother. Apparently, the woman had powers beyond the grave to open these cards in my name. He said he'll be going down today to interrogate her. If she admits to it, she will be booked right there. If she doesn't, they will just need the Chase credit report. I'm planning to go to Chase to grab the report and hand it to them myself tomorrow. I asked if she would know our address. He said if we go to court, my address would be submitted as evidence against the identity theft, so she would know where I lived. Thank goodness we're renting right now. So we agreed if we go to court, we will see how long her sentence is and plan to move out before she's released. We know she will serve time because this is her 4th time and the judge will have no sympathy on a mom doing this to her daughter. Max punishment in the US is 15 years, but she always takes the plea deal, so I can see her serving either a couple of months or a year. It's been a couple of hours and my stomach feels like it's doing flips. My head is so dizzy. The air feels so much heavier. I feel sick. I've been waiting by my phone for a call, an update, something. Did she admit it? Is she booked? What's happening next? The detective then gave me the report number and I called Chase Bank. Chase apparently hadn't processed the application, but after my call, it was out on hold until further investigation. With my report, I was able to have it denied and removed from my credit score. So I have confidence I can go into the bank tomorrow and snag that report. I apologize for any grammar mistakes. I feel so lightheaded, I'm on edge right now. I'll update again once I've heard back from the police. Update 5. So this may not be the update everyone wanted to hear. I didn't get justice. She hasn't been arrested and no charges at this time. I still do have a police report, but I'm not going to push the police to go and make an arrest. This update is just more information I've recently discovered. More context. It wasn't just always my mom, brother, and I. When I was born, I shared a small 3-bedroom apartment with my grandmother, her husband, my aunt in high school, my mom, me, and then my little brother followed. My aunt went no contact with the family in her later 20s, and I never knew why. It hurt to lose someone I was close with. I heard horrible rumors of things my aunt was doing from my mom, and my mom would also let me know awful things my aunt was saying about me. My aunt was on and off in my life after this no contact. Well, fast forward to present, I reached out to my aunt to meet her. We talked and got everything cleared. My mom stole my aunt and her father's identity. My aunt had a lot of debt she didn't know about, and when she found out, it was my mom. She pressed charges. This was the 2nd time she was arrested. My aunt's husband, who was a cop, arrested her. I knew he couldn't stand my mom, but never knew why. My aunt then gave me a list of family members who she also stole their identities, and everyone in the family knew it would happen to me and my brother. The issue was, how are we going to stop her? She was our mom. My aunt told me she wished my mom would have given us up, so my brother and I could have lived with her and had a normal life. I don't know why, but those words broke me so much. To know I had family that knew we were being treated like this but couldn't do much to help us. To know they wanted to save me and my brother. My aunt then proceeded to tell me my father tried to go to court to have my social security number changed and locked until I was 18. This way, my mom couldn't steal my identity. It obviously didn't work, and here I am. She told me how happy and proud she was of me. She told me she struggled when she went no contact because she felt like she left her babies behind and she was afraid of how we would turn out. I love my aunt, and I'm so happy I reached out. I'm even more angry with my mom. How badly she isolated us into her own delusional world and in the end destroyed our relationship. I told my aunt I didn't care that we struggled in poverty. I don't blame her for that. I blame her for how she handled it and put so much pressure on 2 kids to become billionaires for her to continue her reckless spending. Am I the jerk for enrolling my stepdaughter in boarding school despite my husband's wishes? I, 29 female, married Sam, 51 male, and I have one stepdaughter, Laura, who's 16. Laura's mom, Kate, passed when she was a baby, but Sam has always kept her image alive in Laura's life by keeping Kate's family and friends in Laura's life. Kate went to a boarding school when she was a teen and even went back to teach there for a while. It was the best time of her life according to videos she took when she was there and from what her family and friends told us. Laura has always wanted to go there when she was a kid, but we said no as it was too far, in a neighboring country, and she was too young. But now that she's older, she's more decided on going there. Sam keeps saying no. He's worried she might become distant from him living so far away and that she might fall into bad company. I disagree. I think at 16, she's more than responsible enough, and it will only be for 2 years. He still kept saying no, and Laura was pressuring me to convince him. I kept being stuck between them. The deadline kept coming nearer, and Laura kept crying to me about it, begging me, so I decided to go ahead and apply. She needed me to pay the application fee, even though Sam was against it. He knew I was applying. She got in, and I went ahead and paid the tuition. Sam is now very mad at me. He says I had no right, and the mood around our house is tense. Kate's parents agreed with me, as do my in-laws, but my sister-in-law says I had no right. Am I the jerk? I don't know what to do. How do I convince him? Edit. I am Laura's legal guardian, so I can legally send her. Even though Laura doesn't call me mom, she and I have a very close relationship. The reason we are close is partly because I always respected Kate and her memory and never tried to take over. Kate is mom and will always be, but I'm important to Laura too. Please stop undermining my role in her life just because we're not related by blood. One reason I applied is that if I didn't, she would never get to apply again. The school doesn't accept students for older grades, so it was now or never. Sam still has till August to change his mind, but if he doesn't, Laura knows she has to stay. The other reason is that if I didn't, it would damage our relationship with Laura. She has wanted this since she could remember. She grew up watching videos Kate took when she was there. It's her dream to go where her mom went, to be close to her. It's where Kate spent the best years of her life and the last years of her life, as she passed only 4 months after moving to our current country and giving birth. If this ends up breaking Sam and me up, it's a cost I'm willing to take, as long as Laura gets to live her dream. Edit 2. She hasn't gone yet. She doesn't go until September. I just applied because it was the last call for applications. Edit 3. Judgment is I'm the jerk, and fine, I accept it. I still would have done the same. This school was a massive part of Kate's life and identity. Kate spent 7 years of school there, went to a university close by, and worked at the school part-time. Then worked there full-time till she had to move to our country to give birth to Laura, and 4 months later she passed. Kate's passing really affected Sam, and despite my insistence, he hasn't gone to therapy for it. Sam's reasons for not letting Laura go have all to do with his paranoia towards losing her like he lost Kate. I believe I've done the best decision for Laura, and these comments have only reinforced that. Most of the "you're the jerk" votes have more to do with hatred of step-parents and shaming me for our age difference than what was best for Laura. Edit 4. Logging off now. I'll go talk to Sam about getting therapy. His paranoia has been an issue with him and Laura before. He even wanted to get the 360 app one time, but I said no. I have to do what's best for her. If I have to pick between her happiness and him, I will pick her every time. That was not what I was expecting. I'm going with everyone sucks here except Laura. Your husband sucks for not listening to what Laura wants or being willing to discuss it with her. You suck for going behind his back. I would say this even if you were Laura's biological mom. One parent shouldn't unilaterally decide something as big as sending a kid to school in another country. Not the jerk, but woo, that age difference is a concern. You are doing right by both Laura and Kate. Everyone sucks here. Look, being uncomfortable with a 22-year age gap between your husband and you isn't shaming. You should look up that term if you're confused. It's about the power imbalance that exists when you are romantically involved with someone old enough to be your parent. You can see it all over your post, from his unwillingness to get therapy to his controlling behavior with his daughter. The fact that you felt you had to enroll her against his wishes says a lot more than you think. This is not healthy relationship behavior from either of you. Don't let your kid have consequences? Okay. So I'm 23, female, and a nanny. For the family I work for, there are 7 kids, all ranging from 14 years old to 10 months old. I've been working for them for 8 months and never really had any issues. They're a good family for the most part. A key part here is that the kids are all homeschooled, so they do not get out a lot. Unfortunately, that leads to mom and dad spoiling them quite a lot, and since I've started, had a bit of a discipline issue. They throw tantrums, throw things, and scream a lot. Finally, mom decided to put on some discipline because their tantrums led to me getting an injury. I was pushed down the stairs, so she implemented a timeout routine, and it was going well for almost everyone. Here's where the story truly begins. The second to youngest is 2.5, almost 3. His tantrums are some of the worst, and instead of really disciplining him, she coddles. If he screams and yells, she just picks him up and gives him whatever he wants. He will also throw things and hit whoever's telling him no. And mom doesn't do anything. On Wednesday this week, mom had an appointment, and when he woke up from his nap and she wasn't there, he freaked out. I tried to calm him by playing games, food, or reading books, but nothing worked. He just got louder and more aggressive. He even got me and his siblings. Eventually, he woke up the baby, and when I got her, he even tried to get her. So with no other real options working to calm him down, I pick him up, sit him on his bed, and said, "Time out. You do not behave this way. When you calm down, you can come out." He finally is calming down after several minutes and Mom comes home. She was quite upset that he got a timeout because she says that he's too young and doesn't know better. Now, I understand he's young, but I've been a nanny for a while, and I've learned 2 to 3 is normal age for discipline, so they learn to know better. I only do a minute per year age, and only goes longer if they can't calm down, though I check in every minute. She was also upset I used his room as a timeout. Now that part I get and can understand that at this age, associating timeout with where he sleeps, I can agree we don't do that. But I had to ask, when he's acting like this, what do you want me to do? She said let her handle it. If I'm not there, give him what he wants. It's not worth the fight. Okay, but what if it's something I can't give? She replied, if you can just let him go through it, he'll calm down quickly. I looked at her like, are you serious? You do realize how he can be, right? But okay. Cue malicious compliance. The next day, Mom had another appointment and she was gone when he woke up. And of course, he wanted her and only her. I said, sorry, she's not here. Why don't we play a game? He screams no. I ask if he wants a snack. No, he screams and starts slapping at my hands. I ask him to go read a book or go to his sibling's room for playtime. He screams again and starts getting me. I told him, please don't do that. So he screams in my face and goes off throwing things at me and everyone around and just goes off. I tell everyone to go to their rooms. I tried everything to calm him down and it didn't work, so I did exactly what she told me. Absolutely nothing. He continues his tirade, throwing things, pulling things off shelves and screaming. I obviously kept him from things that would hurt him, like glass or ceramics, and when he got on a table to push something, I picked him up and put him down. Though he did bite me really hard when I did that. Not enough to bleed, but enough to leave a good mark. I let this go on for about 15 minutes or so until Mom came home, and when she did, he was still freaking out. She just goes, what's going on? I explained the situation and told her I'm just doing what she said and letting him cry it out till he calms down. She said that's not what she meant. I asked, what did you want? She didn't really have an answer. I told her I couldn't use discipline and I couldn't calm him. You said to let him go. He'd calm down, but he hasn't yet. I made sure everything dangerous was taken away, but I didn't know what else I could do. Now, respectively, I could have picked up what he threw around, but I wanted her to see what he was capable of, and I wasn't going to risk getting hurt again from taking things away. She looked upset, but didn't say anything and just looked at him, still throwing his tantrum. The baby wakes up and she goes to get her. When she comes back to try and calm him down, he screams to pick him up, and he gets her and keeps going till she puts the crying baby on the ground and picks him up. I was kinda shocked she fed into it. I told her he's old enough to know what he's doing. He knows that he'll get what he wants when he does these things, and it's only going to get worse. And if it's going to continue, I'm going to continue to do nothing because I won't risk getting hurt or the other kids in the process. I showed her the bite mark and she went pale a bit and said, he did that? I said, yes, he did. She took a breath and said, why don't you go home for the day and I'll talk to Dad about this. When I came to work this morning, there was a timeout chair for him and I'm allowed to use it at my discretion. Edit. So I will say, because I told this in the comments, I only get paid $22 an hour and it's low. I'm quitting this job soon, or rather, I already did. My last week is in May. I promised I'd stay until then, and then I have a much better paying job backed up. And yes, I did get extra pay for the stairs incident, not the bite, but yes, for the stairs. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.